And we will see you in about 48 hours.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to News Now from Fox. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, Inauguration Day for President-elect Joe Biden. The stage is set there on Capitol Hill. You can see the inauguration area following a COVID-19 victims memorial that happened there last night. You've got the Field of Flags art installation. It is a gorgeous live picture of Capitol Hill standing strong despite the chaos that happened there 2 weeks ago. But good morning, everybody. My name is Pilar Arias. Happy to be here with you on this historic day. Regardless of how you look at it, we are going to have our first female vice president inaugurated in just hours. And things are going to be a little bit different here this morning. We've got your full inauguration coverage, everything that you want and need to know about how things are going to happen today, celebrity guest appearances and the like, security, everything. We are full inauguration mode this morning. So a little bit differently than the morning brief, but still getting you all up to speed with those top stories, most of them from our nation's capital, about what you want and need to know. But again, thank you so much, News Nowers, for tuning in worldwide. We are on 24/7. You can always find us by going to newsnowfox.com. Again, that's newsnowfox.com. But I just wanted to welcome you all to this special day, this special coverage that we have for you. We have been planning for quite some time. First, we're going to start with Lauren Blanchard, who has the latest about the Inauguration Day preps and what has transpired since last night.
There will be a transfer of power by noon here in Washington. What authorities are hoping and have planned for is that it will be a peaceful one. The scene is set for Joe Biden's historic inauguration. It starts with the traditional morning mass. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will take their oath of office on the west front of the Capitol. The soon-to-be 46th president is expected to deliver a message of unity to a country battling a pandemic, racial divisions, and economic uncertainty, a point he made on Tuesday night.
To heal, we must remember. It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal.
There will still be A-list stars to perform, but a small live audience. Pandemic restrictions and fears over a repeat of the January 6th attack on the Capitol have left a normally packed National Mall and Capitol City nearly empty. And hours before his term ends, President Trump issued more than 100 pardons and commutations, including to his former advisor Steve Bannon and rapper Lil Wayne. The first family moving down to his resort in Florida, first holding an event at Joint Base Andrews. His Vice President Mike Pence will not be attending.
I want to thank the American people. To serve as your president has been an honor beyond description.
On his first day in office, President-elect Biden will sign 15 executive orders, and in the coming days, he will reverse a ban on transgender Americans in the military and a ban on federal funding for foreign groups that provide abortion assistance. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
Lauren, thank you so much for that update, keeping us all up to speed from our nation's capital. Here's a live look at the White House. President-elect Joe Biden will be sworn in today as the 46th president of the United States, and he will be occupying the White House, yes, as soon as tonight. The president-elect plans to hit the ground running as soon as he takes office. Fox News' Jackie Heinrich is in Wilmington, Delaware, with more on Biden's policy plans beginning today, day one.
President-elect Joe Biden will not wait for bipartisanship to begin undoing some of President Trump's policies. He's planning a 10-day flurry of executive orders. On day one, Biden will take roughly a dozen executive actions, including extending the pause on student loan payments, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, reversing the travel ban on majority Muslim countries, and enacting a mask mandate on federal property and interstate transit systems. Orders for days 2 through 10 range from establishing standards for school and business reopenings to criminal justice and immigration reform initiatives. President Trump faced broad criticism and some court challenges for abusing executive powers, but Biden's incoming chief of staff, Ron Klain, aimed to undercut that argument, writing, "While the policy objectives in these executive actions are bold, I want to be clear. The legal theory behind them is well-founded and represents a restoration of an appropriate constitutional role for the president." Klain said the list is not exhaustive and more executive orders could soon follow. Biden has also told Congress to expect a sweeping immigration bill his first day in office, and it comes as lawmakers are still unpacking his pandemic relief package, unveiled last week and carrying a $1.9 trillion price tag, causing some Republicans to recoil. Still, Biden's team is forecasting bipartisanship.
You mentioned the $1,400 checks. We've seen broad bipartisan support from that, including Republican senators. You look at other elements of the plan, like an expanded child tax credit, something that Republican senators have supported in the past.
Biden has not yet released part 2 of that plan, aimed at jobs and the economy, but it is expected to be at least as expensive as the first. In Wilmington, Delaware, Jackie Heinrich, Fox News.
Again, everybody, good morning. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, the day many Americans have been waiting for, at least the millions who voted for President-elect Joe Biden. A historic day nonetheless. Later this afternoon, the nation is going to have its first female vice president when Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is sworn in. So speaking of the women by President-elect Joe Biden's side, they are expected to shake up Capitol Hill. Fox News correspondent Jackie Ibanez has more.
The White House is about to undergo a huge makeover. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and soon-to-be First Lady Jill Biden are set to accomplish many firsts as they prepare for their very active roles in the Biden administration.
I will walk there to that moment proudly with my head up and my shoulder back.
Kamala Harris will make history Wednesday as the first female Black and South Asian vice president.
We're ready to do the work, and we've got a lot of work to do.
Harris's chief spokeswoman says you can expect her to be at the forefront of Joe Biden's policy decisions, saying, quote, "She is at the table for everything, involved in everything, and giving input and feedback, and being a supportive partner to him on all pieces."
I'm grateful and excited, and most of all, ready to get to work with all of you.
And Jill Biden is also making White House history. She will continue working as an English professor, becoming the first Lady to keep her day job. But Dr. Biden isn't skipping a beat when it comes to her commitments to the nation, announcing she's relaunching Joining Forces, a program benefiting military families she started with Michelle Obama back in 2011.
We're going to build on what we learned during the Obama-Biden administration. We'll continue to listen and work with you.
The Trumps may also have a few firsts of their own. President Trump is expected not to continue the decades-long tradition of leaving a note for the incoming commander-in-chief, and Melania is expected to not give a tour of the White House residential areas to the new First Lady. Jackie Ibanez, Fox News.
All right, everybody, this is a gorgeous live picture of Capitol Hill. The stage is set. This is where all the activity is going to happen later today. And guess what? You see the screens there as well for everybody's viewing pleasure. We will have your full Inauguration Day coverage right here on NewsNOW from Fox. But it's not all serious news here on Inauguration Day. And you know us here on NewsNOW from Fox. We like to provide you the lighter stories, the happier stories, and in particular, the animal-related stories. As the nation prepares for the 59th presidential inauguration, one furry member of the Biden family already got a special celebration ahead of his dad's big day. Fox's Chris DeMeo has more on how one animal shelter is honoring a historic moment for one of its rescue pets.
With just 2 days until the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden, the Delaware Humane Society, where he adopted his pup Major, threw an inauguration event for the soon-to-be first pet. Folks across the country tuning in to give Major a round of applause. for being the first ever rescue dog to live in the White House.
Congratulations to Major Biden.
Superstar Josh Groban paying tribute with a remixed version of How Much Is That Doggy in the Window?
I'm adopting that doggy in the window, the one with the waggly tail.
The shelter also giving us an inside look at what Major was like as a puppy. The adorable German Shepherd was rescued along with his 5 siblings back in 2018. All the puppies were extremely sick, so the shelter posted a fundraiser looking for donations for their medical treatments.
Ashley Biden, Joe Biden's daughter, had seen the post and shared it with her father.
And the rest was history, with Major and Joe Biden forging a strong bond almost immediately.
Major was really calm, very, very well behaved, very, he just walked right by his side the whole time.
And during these polarizing times, shelter officials say a dog in the White House is something that transcends party lines.
Regardless, again, of your socioeconomic situation, your political affiliation, your race or ethnicity, dogs and cats are something that people can connect with.
The Biden second German Shepherd, Champ, will also be joining Major at the White House, marking the first time in 4 years pets are back in the presidential home. Chris DeMeo, Fox News.
All right, Chris, thank you so much for that update. Well, when Joe Biden takes the oath of office, he is expected to talk about unifying the nation, unity. We've been hearing that word a lot lately. As a devout Catholic, Biden will likely defer to his Catholic roots and faith as the basis for healing in America. Here to tell us more about that is Heidi Schlumpf, executive editor with the National Catholic Reporter.
When Joe Biden takes the oath of office next week, he's expected to talk about unifying the country.
Yeah, as a devout Catholic, he will likely defer to his Catholic roots and faith as a basis for healing our nation. Here to talk more about that is our friend Heidi Schlumpf. She's the executive editor with the National Catholic Reporter. Nice to see you again.
Good morning.
So back in the 60s, I don't need to tell you, a guy named JFK had about 8 in 10 Catholics voting his way. Not the case in 2020. Biden and Trump pretty much split the Catholic vote right down the middle. Does the president-elect need to do anything in your mind to win back Trump Catholics?
Yeah, well, Joe Biden is a believing, faithful, practicing Catholic. Where he disagrees with a number of Catholics, of course, is on the issue of abortion. So he has said that he accepts church teaching about abortion being sinful, but he has accepted what his party says, which is that it should be legal. So we have a lot of conflict around that issue, but I think we can find a lot of points of agreement about church teaching and Joe Biden as well.
It's interesting because religion today, I think if we look back, you talk about JFK and the way people deal with religion today, we live in a different world, don't we? And I'm just curious, though, how did his faith shape the man he has become today? And what kind of difference do you think this makes to the people who voted him in and those who didn't?
Yeah, his Catholicism definitely shaped who he is as a person and a politician. So he's a parishioner at his parish, St. Joseph on the Brandywine in Delaware, and his pastor there told our national correspondent he's a regular Mass attendee. He sometimes arrives late and leaves early, like most Catholics. And grew up, being taught by the Sisters of St. Joseph, nuns. He's also been really shaped by the personal loss in his life. Of course, the death of his wife and baby daughter, and then later the death of his son, Beau. He's often said that his religion has been an enormous sense of solace for him. And incidentally, the priest, Father Leo O'Donovan, a Jesuit, former president of Georgetown University, who presided at Joe Biden's son's funeral, will be giving the opening invocation at the inauguration next week.
I think a lot of people, Heidi, would argue that given the times, the nation needs a big old hug. I don't know if Joe Biden's going to deliver one come Inauguration Day, but are you imagining that he is going to invoke the name of God?
I would expect to see that. We've seen a lot of Catholic symbols and things that he's talked about in his speeches. Like I said, he's a regular Mass goer. He carries a rosary. Some people said they've seen him fingering the beads of the rosary during difficult times. He frequently cites scripture or prayers, even hymns, his mention of On Eagle's Wings, which is a very popular Catholic hymn, in a recent speech. So unlike Kennedy, who didn't talk about his inner spiritual life that much, Joe Biden is pretty comfortable talking about his faith.
Heidi, we want to thank you for joining us this morning, giving us your perspective. Always a pleasure to have you. Thanks again.
All right, everybody, good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to News Now from Fox on this historic Inauguration Day. We say it all the time. This show would not be possible without the help of our sister stations across the country. Now we're heading on over to Minnesota, where Fox 9's Bill Keller is joining us live to talk about how things are looking at the state capitol out there. Good morning, Bill. How you doing?
Good morning. It is a little chilly here in Minnesota, but it is also quiet this morning as they got some roadblocks that have been in place. It's the Minnesota State Capitol behind me. Those have been in place actually for about a week. And you can see National Guard members have also been deployed here to try and help secure not just the Capitol area, but really most of these state office buildings around here as well. Of course, all of this in response to that FBI warning about the potential for those armed protests at all 50 state capitals.
Yeah, Bill, I know here in the state of Florida, our capital in Tallahassee, we had a reporter there yesterday, and he just said, yeah, there's some security precautions in place, but there's been nobody here. There's no protests. So do we have any word on how long they plan to have those security measures in place?
They're going to be here for at least a couple of extra days. Of course, you know, there were some concerns about the far-right extremists. Last week, Governor Walz, of course, activating the Guard here with the troops assisting the state patrol, other law enforcement around these Capitol grounds. Now, we had some pro-Trump events over the weekend. We're talking about a handful of people and a few counter-protesters, but for the most part, everything was peaceful. Really nothing compared to the demonstrators that rallied here weeks ago. That was taking place during the U.S. Capitol protest as they broke in there. Both the Capitol and the governor's residence were affected. In fact, they had to evacuate the governor's son from the mansion there over concerns that those protests might have turned violent, but in the end, they did not.
All right. So do you think the weather is contributing to people not being out there?
It can have a big impact on it. Yeah, we've seen demonstrations that have started in the late fall, and certainly as the weather turns colder, that can have an impact. But again, these are Minnesotans. They're kind of used to this. So if they want to have their voice heard, they will be out here. And there are certainly some demonstrations that are planned for later today, including a march over in Minneapolis following the inauguration. And the governor says that people will still be allowed to protest, but the troops are going to be here for at least several days.
All right, Fox 9's Bill Keller, thank you so much for joining us live, and stay warm.
All right, you're so welcome.
All right, and we're taking a live look at the White House in our nation's capital. All eyes on Washington, D.C. It's a historic day, regardless of how you look at it. The nation will have its first female vice president taking the oath of office today. The stage is set. This live picture, we keep going back to it just because it is so gorgeous there on Capitol Hill. We're going to have a change of administration. President Donald Trump, well, his departure of the White House, there's a lot of steps to it if you really want to know. And it's all expected to get underway at about 8 o'clock this morning. We're hearing at 8:10 this morning that Marine One is going to arrive at Joint Base Andrews. Then we're hearing at 8:15 that President Trump is going to attend a ceremony there. Then we're hearing that President Trump is going to walk through the honor cordon to board Air Force One at 8:35 this morning, and then Air Force One departs Joint Base Andrews about 8:55 this morning. So yes, we will have it all for you right here on News Now from Fox. We are going to, for sure, have all your coverage, complete coverage, and it's going to carry on well into the evening as well with the special night celebrating the new President of the United States. All right, so we are continuing on, a little bit different from what we consider the morning brief usually here on News Now from Fox, and that's because we are in full inauguration mode. So President-elect Biden's plan to repeal the Trump tax cuts and impose new taxes on high-income Americans has some mom-and-pop shops worried. Fox News correspondent Hillary Vaughn has more from Wayne, Pennsylvania.
I can't get Uncle Sam to work Friday night, Saturday night, and he refuses to clean the bathrooms.
Small business owners like John Iezzi of Campus Corner Pizza right next to Villanova University are bracing for higher taxes under President-elect Biden.
I'm not going to raise taxes on a single solitary American making less than $400,000 a year.
There are over 30 million small businesses in the U.S. Over 40% make over $400,000 in revenue. Biden needs to repeal some of President Trump's tax cuts to pay for trillions in new government spending.
The way to get more tax revenue from small businesses is to let them reopen and engage their customers.
But Biden has promised small businesses will be spared from his tax hikes, but analysis from the Tax Foundation and other groups say his plan as it stands wouldn't. Higher taxes on households is putting mom and pop shops on edge because many of them don't file as corporations. They file individual returns and pay individual rates.
So now I'm dealing with increased taxes, less revenue, my business 50% down.
John and Deb Abel of Abel Brothers Towing started with 3 tow trucks. Now they have over 30, but they may have to hit the brakes on expanding.
We're also fearful of what's to come tax-wise on small business, because the amount of money that our federal government has been spending due to COVID, I'm sure it's got to come from somewhere, and it usually comes out of the pockets of small business.
Biden doesn't want to just raise tax rates for some. He intends to add new taxes too. Individuals making more than $400,000 in wages will have to pay an extra 12.4% Social Security payroll tax if Congress goes along with his plan. In Wayne, Pennsylvania, Hillary Vaughn, Fox News.
Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. For those of you sticking around, we will continue to take a look at this live, gorgeous picture of Capitol Hill this Wednesday morning, January 20th, 2021. We are approaching 6:30 in the morning, but again, most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. All right, everyone, welcome to News Now from Fox. If you are just joining us, if you've been watching since we launched at 6 o'clock Eastern this morning, thank you so much. I do want to provide you the rundown as to how this is all going to work out today. You can see on the left-hand side of your screen, President Trump's departure, how it's going to work. At 8:10 this morning, so in less than 2 hours, Marine One is going to arrive at Joint Base Andrews. Then at 8:15, President Trump is actually attending a ceremony at Joint Base Andrews. At 8:35, President Trump is actually going to board Air Force One, and then at 8:55, Air Force One departs Joint Base Andrews. So I had a little bit of text issues there trying to fix that all in, but that's the latest here on News Now from Fox. So, of course, a lot of people have been in full security mode, right? What is going to happen following the Capitol chaos that was exactly 2 weeks ago? What, if anything? Regardless, there's thousands of troops in our nation's capital. The downtown area is locked down. They want to make sure that they are prepared this time for when and if anything happens. Wants to make sure that nothing is going to happen. But still, there's been heightened security, heightened alerts, not just in our nation's capital, but at state capitals across the country. So we're about 6 minutes or so away from a live interview right here on News Now from Fox with a retired senior State Department diplomatic security special agent and threat assessment professional. His name is Dave Benson, and he's worked inauguration security before. So that's a few minutes away. But until then, I'm going to take you out to Ray Bogan's latest report, just talking about what each has to say about marking this moment, the transition from President Donald Trump to soon-to-be President Joe Biden.
A night before his inauguration, Joe Biden paid tribute to the more than 400,000 Americans who have died from coronavirus.
It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal. It's important to do that as a nation.
The pandemic forced the inauguration to go mostly virtual, and the guest list is down from the typical 200,000 to about 1,000. Biden's top legislative priority is COVID relief, and during her confirmation hearing, Treasury Secretary nominee Janet Yellen urged Congress to pass another package.
Without further action, we risk a longer, more painful recession now.
The security in D.C. is like a fortress, with fencing, roadblocks, and 25,000 National Guard members. The FBI vetted every one and removed 12 from duty because of right-wing or extremist views.
The Secret Service, the FBI, and others are going to vet any individuals that are going to have close proximity or to have access to some of these sensitive locations.
Live picture that we see very often, so I wanted to bring it to you right here on News Now from Fox. Well, it appears there are more than 25,000 National Guard troops in Washington to keep the peace in the run-up to the inauguration, but there are still worries about the potential for violence and concerns some of those tasked with keeping people safe may in fact have other agendas. Fox News correspondent Rich Edson is on Capitol Hill with the latest.
A dozen National Guard members assigned to protect the presidential inauguration are out.
We work very closely with law enforcement, and if there's any identification or anything whatsoever that needs to be looked into, out of an abundance of caution, we automatically pull those personnel off the line.
The Pentagon says the military is removing 2 of the 12 National Guard members because of inappropriate comments or texts. Federal law enforcement is examining the 25,000 National Guard troops in Washington to protect against any potential insider attack.
Vetting efforts that identify any questionable behavior in the past or any potential link to questionable behavior not just related to extremism.
Officials say this is part of routine security, especially for events involving the President of the United States. Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller said, quote, "While we have no intelligence indicating an insider threat, we are leaving no stone unturned in securing the Capitol." Though one congressional Democrat contends there should be serious concern about the National Guard this week.
You got to figure that in the Guard, which is predominantly more conservative, and I see that on my social media and we know it, they're probably not more than 25% of the people that are there protecting us who voted for Biden. The other 75% are in the class that would be the large class of folks who might want to do something.
Republicans and Trump administration officials quickly condemned Congressman Cohen.
Those comments are offensive, they're disgusting, and every member of Congress should be demanding that he apologize for those comments.
Cohen's office says he was answering a question about the Guard and the January 6th Capitol riot. and that the congressman has and continues to support the National Guard. Also, a law enforcement official tells Fox News the FBI has warned agencies that officials are still trying to identify the suspect responsible for placing pipe bombs near the Capitol January 6th. The FBI warns that there is concern the person is still active and could attempt more explosive devices. Workers have been adding barbed wire to the fencing behind me, just a couple of blocks away from the Capitol building and the Supreme Court. Though much of the city beyond this area is still closed. Businesses, bridges, and roadways. And where the streets are open, plenty of traffic. That's why local officials are warning just to stay away over the next couple of days. In Washington, Rich Edson, Fox News.
Rich, thank you so much for that update. We are just a few minutes away from interviewing Dave Benson right here on News Now from Fox. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. Welcome back to News Now from Fox, everyone. Again, we are taking a live look at Capitol Hill. The beauty and magic of this show is we are not a traditional newscast. When we speak to people, we get to speak to them live, raw, unfiltered, and for more than a couple minutes. So it's not just a quick part of an interview that you get to see the whole thing. And currently I am joined by Mr. Dave Benson, who's also right here in Central Florida. And Mr. Benson, you are a retired senior State Department diplomatic security special agent and threat assessment professional. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
So if you wouldn't mind, please tell me a little bit about your background. And you've worked inauguration security before, is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I had an extensive career with the Diplomatic Security Service. A big part of that portfolio is dignitary protection. And in the context of the inaugural today, I was part of the planning for the President Clinton's inaugural.
Talk to me about, especially for those of us who have never been to an inauguration. Of course, we see it on television and we see the scope, We saw massive crowds for Obama. We saw massive crowds for Trump. What's it like working security for an event like that?
Well, the planning that goes on ahead of time is unbelievable. And this is normally the case, even if we hadn't had the tragedy of the past week. The team trains for months. They pull out contingency plans. They do tabletop exercises. They coordinate communications so that by the time it's game day, and for the security professionals that are there, that's exactly what this is. They are like a well-oiled machine. And I fully expect them to do their job in a fantastic manner.
One question that I have, Mr. Benson, is, of course, everybody saw images, videos of the chaos that ensued exactly 2 weeks ago today. But ever since then, has there been an overreaction, you think, to preparedness for what may or may not happen today?
No, I think given the circumstances, the response has been by and large prudent and necessary. You don't know what you're going to get. There has been some rumblings online and other sources that there could be more disruptions, not only here, but in other locations around the country. So I think you have to be better safe than sorry, be prepared for the worst and hope for the best. And I think that's where the security forces are today.
Another thing I wondered as well, I mean, of course, the new president-elect has to take the oath of office. The transition of power has to happen. But was there any way that we could have just canceled this inauguration celebration? It's going to be mostly virtual as well.
That's a good question. I hear it a lot. The reality of it is the oath of office can be given anywhere. But I think for political reasons and frankly for optics, they really wanted to do their best to make sure that even though despite the pandemic and despite some of the issues that we've dealt with recently, they wanted to have somewhat of a public event so the whole country and in fact the world could see this transfer of power.
Now, let's talk about, you actually just talked about threats nowadays. A lot of it is online chatter. But back during the Clinton administration, how were threat assessments done?
They were done similarly, but we didn't have really the internet. I'm aging myself to say that. And so the internet was in its infancy. And so many threats were verbal. They were written. You would hear from good old-fashioned intelligence, from law enforcement organizations, from groups that might wish to do harm to the president-elect or the vice president-elect. It was a much more painstaking process. So the good news is, because of social media, we're able to monitor this a little more effectively. The bad news is, because it's social media, it's much easier to kind of radicalize yourself or join a group of like-minded individuals that wish to do harm. And so the floodgates are really open with these types of electronic threats these days.
Of course, with our East Coast News Now from Fox Hub being right here in Central Florida, we pay attention to Orlando news. We actually saw people that were leaving MCO, the airport, Orlando International, headed to D.C. because they booked it months ago. They were hoping to be a part of the inauguration, but now we're hearing downtown and anywhere near the Capitol is completely locked down, and anybody who's not supposed to be there won't be able to be there. Anything you want to say to those people who are kind of just hanging out in our nation's capital hoping to see something today?
Well, first and foremost, you're going to be a little bit disappointed because they've designated the green zone around the entire perimeter. And what you are able to see, isn't going to be what you would hope for. But be patient. Pack your patience, because people have a job to do. They're going to keep this event safe. And don't do anything silly or stupid. Today, it's not about politics. It's about a peaceful transition of power and keeping everybody safe. So make good decisions that won't cost you later.
Now, when today is all over, are the barricades going to come down? Is Capitol Hill going to be easily accessible to people today, or are the guards going to be up for a few days still?
Well, I don't know the exact timetable for that, but my assumption would be is they're going to take a look at that, see how today went, see how the evening goes, and they may choose to extend it for a few more days, or they may, loosen up the perimeter a little bit. That remains to be seen, but a lot of that's going to be based upon threat assessments and active intelligence that they're receiving.
I'm not going to date myself, but I have been to our nation's capital once. I was in 4th grade, so I'm not going to say what year it was. But that's the beauty and magic of Washington, D.C., is seeing all the monuments. And so it definitely must be kind of painstaking for those who did have good intentions and who actually wanted to attend the historic inauguration today.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite an event. I've always had family members and friends that have gone. But even under normal circumstances, and I'll put the normal in air quotes, security is extremely tight on Inauguration Day. So while you can have spectators, even then it was thoroughly screened and vetted. This is just a more extreme example of that because of the recent circumstances. So again, if you are there, it's a wonderful city. There are still some things to see and be part of the pageantry and the event. But please make good decisions and don't try to force your way into areas that are restricted.
I wanted to tap into your expertise really quickly again about the National Special Security events. Can you elaborate on that again for me, please?
Sure. It's a National Special Security event. It designates the United States Secret Service as the overall command and control authority of the event. And it does a couple of things for us from a security perspective. Number one, it ensures a coordinated response if they have problems. Everybody knows their role, from the National Guard at the outer perimeter to other state and federal local law enforcement agencies, all the way to the Capitol Police at the Capitol. They know what their role is and who they can call on and how to respond if there's a problem. So it's much smoother. It's very tight security. And it's a good thing. They do these for Super Bowls. We'll see this in Tampa coming up. They do this for other events when I help coordinate the Olympic Games for the State Department. Same type of idea. And so we want people to enjoy themselves, but we also want to make sure that everybody involved is going to be able to participate safely and securely.
All right, one non-inauguration related question. You've got a lot of background in security. You've worked events. I've heard you worked at Disney as well.
Yeah, it's true. I started my career with the Walt Disney Company in the security division back in the dark ages.
So for those of you who are watching this, or for those who are watching this, who are inspired by your story, who say, I want to get into security, I want to be like Mr. Benson, I want to have a job and a career like this, what would you recommend for them?
First of all, don't give up. The competition was keen back when I started. It's even keener now. I think by all accounts, applicants for all federal agencies are stronger, smarter, in some ways more talented, but you need to believe in yourself and keep trying. I would apply to multiple agencies, which is what I did, and I settled with U.S. Department of State, Diplomatic Security Service. It's a wonderful career, particularly if you want to go overseas. Spent half of our career overseas with my family. So a very rewarding career, and also, mind your P's and Q's, particularly nowadays with social media. Everything you do, say, and have said is permanently online. So keep that in mind, because they will look at that when you apply for work, and particularly in law enforcement.
Some great advice and a perfect way to wrap up this interview. So Mr. Dave Benson, thank you so much for joining us bright and early this morning. And if you're able to watch today, I hope you enjoy the festivities.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, everyone, we're taking a live look at Capitol Hill right now. This gorgeous live picture. The stage is set for today. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break, and when you return, we will be just seconds away from speaking with Fox's Doug Luzader. All right, everybody, welcome back to News Now from Fox. We're taking a live look at Capitol Hill. The stage is set, and it's going to be a historic day for sure. We have Fox's Doug Luzader joining us again live this morning. Doug, good morning. How are things out there right now in our nation's capital?
Good morning. Well, we're getting ready for the event today, and you know the timing is critical for these things. Obviously, the handover of power takes place at noon Eastern time. And as far as the choreography is concerned with President Trump, he is going to depart the White House in just a short time and head to Andrews Air Base for a send-off celebration there. He will not take place in the inauguration itself, as you know, and we think he's going to be arriving at his home in Florida just before the swearing in of soon-to-be President Biden. And beyond that, obviously a lot of security here that we've been seeing play out over the past few days. We've been seeing busloads of National Guard troops moving around. Some 25,000 of them have kind of been absorbed into the city for this event. So this is going to be relatively small in terms of a live audience, but a massive security footprint as we wait for this all to get underway today.
Now, how did last night go, President Trump's final hours in office? There was a lot of pardons and commutations, right?
Yeah, this is what we expected. This is typical of an outgoing administration to offer kind of a lot of last-minute acts of clemency, pardons and sentence commutations, that kind of thing. This president has not been as free-handed as some of his predecessors in terms of pardons, but still a fair number of them came out last night just after midnight. Some of these are kind of typical of what you would see, people that have petitioned for a pardon through the official process. Others are folks that just simply had the ear of the president, including Steve Bannon, the president's former political strategist. There was a RNC official among that group, a couple of rappers as well. So certainly some unusual names and probably a lot of names that people wouldn't even recognize. So a fair number of those came out, and they came out after midnight last night.
If you had to say anything about President Trump's legacy over the last 4, perhaps 5 years when you count the campaign, what would you say it is?
Well, it's pretty complicated, as any kind of populist president is. You know, I think a lot of it right now has to do with people's emotional reaction to the Trump administration. A lot of folks were fervently in his corner. A lot of folks were fervently opposed to him. I think it may take a little bit longer to really put this all into perspective. What's happened in the Middle East, what's happened to U.S.-based alliances around the world. It's a complicated legacy to unpack. Right now, again, there's a lot of emotion around all of this, but we'll see what history makes of the Trump administration.
The ceremony that's going, it's less than a couple hours away, the ceremony that's going to happen at JBA. Do you have any details about that? What is it going to be, just kind of a farewell send-off, or?
Yeah, well, we'll hear Hail to the Chief as the president leaves Air Force One. There'll be an honor ceremony. The president himself, we expect, will make some remarks, and then he will take Air Force One to his next destination, which is Florida. This is unusual. Generally, the outgoing president attends the inauguration. This president decided not to do that, and again, the way this times out, he will fly down and arrive in Florida still as the president of the United States. The handover will take place sometime after that.
All right, Fox's Doug Luzader live there in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on News Now from Fox. All right, everyone, we're taking another live look at Capitol Hill. Most of you are going to see another 2-minute commercial break, but don't go anywhere. News Now from Fox is in full Inauguration Day coverage mode. We've got you covered from all angles, all vantage points, all top stories that you want and need to know about this day that many have been anticipating and some have not, but a transition of power is happening today.
For the last 10 years, Craig Dzieck has been responsible for spearheading the Bay Area's partnership with the federal government to protect the community from terrorist attacks. Dzieck serves as the general manager of the Bay Area Urban Area Security Initiative.
We promote regional initiatives that align with the grant, the reason for the grant, and that is to prevent, there's a nexus to terrorism, and that is to protect, the communities against a terrorist event.
Dzieck works directly with the Department of Homeland Security to allocate regional grants. He's worked at all levels of government for more than 20 years, but back in 1980, he was just a student at American University in Washington, D.C.
We wanted to have some experience, knowledge working in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is the politics. It's sort of like the L.A. regarding the entertainment world.
Like many of his friends, Craig wanted to work on Capitol Hill, so he found a senator who he thought matched his interests.
I applied and I interned for Joe Biden at that time. He was the youngest senator. He was on the Foreign Senate Relations Committee.
Craig still has the signed photo from his time in Biden's office. He says one story from the internship sticks out. He was asked to pick up lunch for his new boss, but when he went to drop it off, then Senator Biden was the only one in the office.
Oh, sit down. Tell me about yourself. What classes are you taking? What do you like? And there was this conversation, and he didn't need to do that.
Craig says the 20-minute meeting solidified his respect for Biden and set a framework for how he treats his staff, including interns, to this day.
The person that could speak and could relate, that shows empathy, that has emotional intelligence, it's amazing. The inner person hasn't changed.
Now that his old boss from 40 years ago is the president-elect, Craig says it's a bit of a full circle moment for him. While Craig continues to work with the federal government, he has this message for the man who helped him launch his career.
You're always my hero, and I'm glad that you're in a position that would make a difference.
Greg Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
All right, everybody, you know that you can trust the News Now from Fox to bring you everything that you want and need to know inauguration related. You probably see me moving around here, and that's because I'm trying to pull up the right graphic. This is what I like to call mission control. This is a vantage point here of the News Now from Fox set at the East Coast Hub in Orlando, Florida. I have been a News Now from Fox host for 3 years now. Started at the headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, which just so happens to be my hometown. And then when they announced the expansion of the Orlando hub and the Los Angeles hub, I said, hello, please, I would love to be a part of that. And they did. They transferred me out here to Orlando. So this is a brand new, gorgeous facility thanks to our colleagues here at Fox 35. You can see all the different buttons that we have to push, all the different screens that we have. And when you watch News Now from Fox, you're not just hearing and seeing the host. We are in total, complete control of the show, the audio, the graphics, what video you're seeing, what camera vantage points, what live pictures, and there's no scripts. There's no teleprompter. Thanks to our sister stations across the country, we are fortunate to take live pictures and different reports and get information as well. So as you know, we are a very strong Fox television station group, and it is just such an honor and a pleasure to be a host of News Now from Fox. So we are continuing on with your full Inauguration Day coverage. Matter of fact, let's talk about something that we aired yesterday.
Stand and raise your right hand.
Yeah, the cabinet confirmation hearings began yesterday. So let's talk about the diverse cabinets. Again, a number of Joe Biden's top cabinet picks were grilled on Capitol Hill yesterday. The Senate kicked off confirmation hearings for a number of positions, including Treasury Secretary, Secretary of State, and Director of National Intelligence. Yesterday's hearings will be crucial in allowing these members to begin work on day one of President Biden's tenure as president. On the campaign trail, Joe Biden guaranteed his White House would, quote, look like the country. As he enters the White House, he's taking steps towards keeping that promise, assembling a historically diverse slate of top-level nominees. Half of the president-elect's cabinet picks are women, and the majority are people of color. Biden has noted that many of his selections would be pioneers in their roles, including the first woman to serve as Treasury Secretary, the first Black Defense Secretary, the first openly gay man confirmed to a cabinet role, and the first Native American cabinet secretary. Specifically, President-elect Joe Biden nominated retired Army General Lloyd Austin to serve as the 28th Defense Secretary. And that's the latest there on the cabinet picks. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break at the top of the hour. We have another live guest here on News Now from Fox. She's Professor Anita McBride, who is executive in resident at American University. Again, that's coming up here at the top of the hour on News Now from Fox. As we take another live look at the Capitol in our nation's capital, I want to take a moment to thank all of the live guests who have and are joining us this morning for our special News Now from Fox coverage on this historic Inauguration Day. Joining us now is Professor Anita McBride. She is the executive in residence at American University. Good morning, Professor. How are you doing?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
You and I were just talking during the commercial break. This is a historical day. Let's talk about the significance.
Sure. Of course. I mean, every inauguration is a new chapter in the nation's history. But this particular time, we have just come off a period of great national divide and great trauma. The pandemic, of course, is at the root of that, but also there has been so much division in the country. We saw it displayed at the Capitol 2 weeks ago, which I think rocked America to its core. No living American has seen what we saw 2 weeks ago happen at our nation's Capitol. So I think that the significance of an inauguration today, a bit of a turning of the page for the nation, and a real opportunity for the president, the new president, to set a tone and a course for the next 4 years.
Before we took that commercial break, we did talk about the president-elect today going to be President Joe Biden's diverse cabinet picks. Can you break down some of those picks?
Sure. No, it is. I think there are a couple of notable things about the picks that Joe Biden had. One, the speed with which he did them. Clearly, this is a man, you've seen it displayed in these cabinet selections, who has a wide breadth of relationships with many people throughout our country who have been in public service, and people that he trusts, people he has worked with, people that he knows can do the job. So I think he surprised some people with some of the picks. There clearly were pressures on him to make sure certain people from certain backgrounds were included. And I think by and large, of course, he did that. I think the one notable exclusion from the diversity of this cabinet is the fact that there is no one from the other side. There's no Republican that has been nominated to be in any one of these positions, which we had seen a trend with that before Donald Trump, of course. But I think that, really, again, the speed, the diversity, and the fact that, this is a person who wants to hit the ground running day one and already has had a number of his nominees go through hearings.
Professor McBride, I'm going to keep your audio up, but I do want to show our viewers we have a live vantage point now of Air Force One for the first time this morning. Okay. The sun is rising there at Joint Base Andrews, so we're all about live here. So I'm taking everybody out to the Air Force One shot while we keep talking. But the confirmation hearings that started yesterday, how do you think they went? There was 3 of them, and I think everybody was most interested in the Treasury Secretary due to the state of the economy and the pandemic.
Well, sure, of course, that's an important nomination. The first woman to be our Treasury Secretary. I mean, honestly, I can't believe that, but that's an important step, a person of experience, a person with a solid hand. And I think both sides of the aisle know that. I think the other notable hearing that happened yesterday is Lloyd Austin, because this is now the second time that we are going to ask the Congress to waive the restriction on a former active duty military to be able to hold a civilian position at the Defense Department, the Secretary of Defense. So that apparently went well. There are some issues and questions, of course, about that were anticipated that Elizabeth Warren would ask about his ties to corporate America and the defense industry in particular. But it does appear that will go through. He has his House hearing Thursday. So that was an important one. The other issue, of course, that came up yesterday was the challenge by Senator Hawley, Josh Hawley of Missouri, to the nominee for Homeland Security and wanting to know more about how he's going to protect our borders. But again, these are important nominations to be heard first. The National Security Team, this was an important step this week.
All right, Professor, I do want to ask you too, you just talked about how quickly Joe Biden chose his cabinet members. How quickly can we see them get to work?
I think you'll see that this Congress, and certainly now the Senate, is in Democratic hands starting tomorrow. They will convene quickly. Senator Schumer already said that they are getting to work this afternoon. I think you'll see some confirmations of these critical positions, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, rather quickly so that they can't get to work. And the good news, though, is let's remember there are acting professionals in these agencies, to keep things operational until those final Senate confirmations are done and there is a swearing in of new appointees.
I did want to ask you really quickly, what do you think about the president-elect choosing members to be on his team that were former opponents against him when he first announced his candidacy? We've got Pete Buttigieg and even Kamala Harris, who's now going to be his vice president.
Right. Well, that was the first indication right there that in Joe Biden's core, he can reach across divides. He divides within his own party, but also divides on the other side of the aisle. I think what was also notable about him is, and the relationships that he has and is able to keep, is how one of the first calls he got after winning the election was from his former colleague, Senator Susan Collins from Maine, the Republican from Maine, who had a bruising battle to win her reelection. But that was an indication to me to how the new president will be able to work with members across the aisle, and that is very important. That's part of showing the healing of divisions, and in the same to the selection of Pete Buttigieg and certainly Kamala Harris, who had a notable moment, really going after Joe Biden's character in the debate.
All right, Professor Anita McBride, executive in residence at American University. Is there anything else you'd like to tell me this morning?
No, I just think I appreciate the opportunity to talk on this historic day. And I think letting the nation now come together. This is an opportunity, a challenge, but an opportunity.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on News Now from Fox. We are taking a live look now, everybody, at Air Force One. The events upcoming today. Let's talk about exactly what is going to happen. Marine One arrives at Joint Base Andrew at 8:10 this morning. At 8:15, there's going to be a ceremony. You heard Doug Luzader talk about it. 8:35, President Trump boards Air Force One. And at 8:55, Air Force One is going to be departing Joint Base Andrews, headed right here for Florida. That's because the president, former president and first lady, will be living here in Florida. Again, thank you so much for joining us on this historic Inauguration Day. Some people have been looking forward to it. Some people have not. Regardless, the transition of power is happening after the Capitol chaos ensued 2 weeks ago. President Trump vowed that it would be a peaceful transition of power, although there are not certain things that are taking place that normally do happen with the transition of power. You've got a bunch of different things that we will be talking about a little bit later on the show. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. When you return, we will continue with our coverage. We're also just a few minutes away from speaking with Fox 5 DC's Bob Barnard about the inauguration. Again, everybody, welcome back to our special Inauguration Day coverage here on News Now from Fox. If you happen to miss it or you want to know yet again, this is the timeline for the activity at Joint Base Andrews. Marine One is going to arrive there at 8:10, so less than an hour from now. There's going to be a ceremony at 8:15. 20 minutes after that, President Trump is going to board Air Force One, and an additional 20 minutes after that, Air Force One is going to depart Joint Base Andrews and head on over here for the state of Florida. We've got Bob Barnard this morning. Bob, good morning. You are in the middle of all the action. What's it like out there in our nation's capital?
Yeah, hey, Pilar. Good morning to you. Yes. You know, we're in the middle of the action where the president-elect will spend part of his morning before going up to Capitol Hill, but we're technically outside of the fortified zone that's been established for the last several days. Behind me is Rhode Island Avenue Northwest in Washington, if anybody's familiar with the D.C. area, just south of DuPont Circle, just north and a slight bit west of the White House. And behind us, you can see it through security. This is a New York City police officer, Officer Zonis. Yes, you have New York City police here, uniformed Secret Service, busloads of men wearing HSI, Homeland Security jackets that are here protecting the church, the cathedral, St. Matthew's Cathedral, which is just over here behind us, which will be hosting a mass at 9 a.m. Eastern Time that the Biden family has arranged. This is part of the schedule, but they're calling it a private mass at 9 o'clock, a Catholic mass, Joe Biden becoming only the second Catholic president in the United States history. St. Matthew's was where the funeral for John F. Kennedy was held back in November of 1963. You know, that iconic photo of John Jr. saluting the casket was right there at the bottom of the steps of this cathedral. Invited to this mass this morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time are the congressional leaders from both the Republican and Democrat parties. So you will have Speaker Pelosi and soon-to-be Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, but also the outgoing Senate Republican leader, the Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, and Kevin McCarthy, a California congressman who is the House Minority Leader. So a massive unity. This will be the first that we'll see of the president and vice president-elect this morning before they head up to Capitol Hill for the swearing-in ceremony. So a growing security presence here, Pilar, this morning in Northwest Washington, outside the Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle, which again is just outside of the security zone, several blocks from the White House and Blair House, where the Bidens have spent last night.
Bob, you're right there on the barricade. As a matter of fact, you have an officer literally right behind you. And I just realized, even though we've been speaking for 2 weeks now, pretty much on a daily basis with you there near Capitol Hill, right in downtown Washington, D.C., they're not even allowing the media anywhere close to Capitol Hill, right?
Some credentialed. You know, I mean, I've got, some credentials myself here. We will actually have a reporter up on the riser, and there are some media being allowed inside the perimeter at different locations. Security is very tight, obviously, but the Capitol isn't necessarily off limits to media. Like Joe Wagner, my photographer, and I, after we're done here after the Mass this morning, we're going to wander. We will not be wandering close to the Capitol itself, even though we have credentials. There are certain special credentials to get people right up close to the Capitol, but we'll be in this area here, kind of just checking things out. We initially got here at 3:30 this morning Eastern Time, and we're set up right at the steps of St. Matthew's Cathedral, but by 4 in the morning, Secret Service asked us to move a block away, which is where we are now.
Yesterday, one of the biggest headlines was that the FBI was vetting all of the National Guard troops. There's about 25,000 there in our nation's capital for today. And when we learned the news that 12 had been removed, I mean, that was pretty shocking.
It is, but maybe, Pilar, shouldn't be too surprising because, like our teachers are, and our neighbors and law enforcement, I mean, they're a cross-section of society. And it really probably shouldn't surprise us that among law enforcement, and in this particular case, the National Guard, there would be some in there who have beliefs that might run counter to those who are preparing for today's inauguration and in charge of security. And because of that, not that they would have acted out or done anything necessarily, but because of those beliefs or those stated positions, they've been removed from the security perimeters. And so it is shocking, but I don't know that it's necessarily surprising. It's just, it's in a sense a shame that it's come to that the beliefs of those who are here, maybe even some here standing behind me, might be sympathetic to some of those who were passionate and determined to try to interrupt the proceedings on Capitol Hill 2 weeks ago today. But they've got a job to do, and ideally they can separate the two.
Yeah, we heard from a security expert a little bit earlier on the show who said it's definitely better to be safe than sorry, and they're hoping that today goes off without a hitch.
Absolutely, we do too here, and it's cold and blustery, but a historic day, and hopefully it goes smoothly.
All right, Fox 5's Bob Barnard out there yet again for us here on News Now from Fox, really close to Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for joining us.
You bet. Have a good one.
All right, everyone. Again, we're taking a live look at Air Force One at Joint Base Andrews. We provided the rundown for you exactly how it is going to work today. And guess what? We're going to have all that coverage for you right here on News Now from Fox in less than an hour. Speaking of President Donald Trump and Air Force One and Joint Base Andrews, here's a live look right now at the White House. This is a beautiful live picture, everybody. You've got the Washington Monument standing tall in the background. You have the American flag flying above the White House, and you've got the fountain there as well. The sun has definitely risen here on the East Coast, and regardless of how you look at it, today is going to be a historic day. The nation's first female vice president is going to take the oath of office, and many people are saying this is a new chapter for us as a nation. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. When we return, we'll actually be listening in to First Lady Melania Trump's farewell. Again, this is News Now from Fox. It is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021. We are in our special inauguration coverage.
My fellow Americans, it has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as First Lady of the United States. I have been inspired by incredible Americans across our country who lift up our communities through their kindness and courage, goodness and grace. The past 4 years have been unforgettable. As Donald and I conclude our time in the White House, I think of all of the people I have taken home in my heart and their incredible stories of love, patriotism, and determination. I see the faces of brave young soldiers who have told me with their pride in their eyes how much they love serving this country. To every service member and to our incredible military families, you are heroes, and you will always be in my thoughts and prayers. I think of all of the members of law enforcement who greet us everywhere we go. At every hour of every day, they stand guard to keep our communities safe, and we are forever in their depth. I have been moved by children I have visited in hospitals and foster care centers. Even as they fight difficult illnesses or face challenges, they bring such a joy to everyone they meet. I remember the mothers who have battled the disease of opioid addiction and have overcome incredible hardships for love of their children. I have been inspired by the devoted caregivers for babies born with neonatal absence syndrome and communities that give these children the support and care they need to grow. When I think about these meaningful experiences, I'm humbled to have had the opportunity to represent a nation with such kind and generous people. As the world continues to confront the COVID-19 pandemic, I thank all of the nurses, doctors, healthcare professionals, manufacturing workers, truck drivers, and so many others who are working to save lives. We grieve for the families who have lost a loved one due to the pandemic. Every life is precious, and I ask all Americans to use caution and common sense to protect the vulnerable, as millions of vaccines are now being delivered. In the midst of hardship, we have seen the best of America shine through. Students have made cards and delivered groceries to our senior citizens. Teachers have worked twice as hard to keep our children learning. Families have come together to provide meals, supplies, comfort, and friendship to those in need. Be passionate in everything you do, but always remember that violence is never the answer and will never be justified. When I came to the White House, I reflected on the responsibility I have always felt as a mother to encourage, give strength, and teach values of kindness. It is our duty as adults and parents to ensure that children have the best opportunities to lead fulfilling and healthy lives. The passion for helping children succeed has driven my policy initiatives as First Lady. I launched Be Best to ensure that we as Americans are doing all we can to take care of the next generation. Be Best has concentrated on 3 pillars: well-being, online safety, and opioid abuse. In a few short years, I have raised awareness of how to keep children safe online. We have made incredible progress on our nation's drug epidemic and how it impacts the lives of newborns and families. And we have given a voice to our most vulnerable children in their foster care system. Internationally, Be Best has evolved into a platform that encourages world leaders to discuss issues impacting the lives of children and allows them to share solutions. It has been an honor to represent the American people abroad. I treasure each of my experiences and the inspiring people I have met along the way. As I say farewell to my role as First Lady, it is my sincere hope that every American will do their part to teach our children what it means to be best. I encourage parents to educate your children about the courageous and selfless heroes who worked and sacrificed to make this country the land of the free, and to lead by example and care for others in your community. The promise of this nation belongs to all of us. Do not lose sight of your integrity and values. Use every opportunity to show consideration for another person and build good habits into your daily lives. In all circumstances, I ask every American to be an ambassador of Be Best, to focus on what unites us, to raise above what divides us, to always choose love over hatred, peace over violence, and others before yourself. Together, as one national family, we can continue to be the light of hope for future generations and carry on America's legacy of rising our nation to greater heights through our spirit of courage, goodness, and faith. No words can express the depth of my gratitude for the privilege of having served as your First Lady. To all the people of this country, you will be in my heart forever. Thank you. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Welcome back to News Now from Fox. My name is Pilar Arias. You are watching our special Election Day coverage. The sun has risen in our nation's capital. A change of leadership is taking place. America will have the 46th president of the United States take the oath of office today. Here's a live look at some activity happening right there at our nation's capital, the building itself, that is. There are some what appears to be Marines out front. They just walked down the steps, likely preparing for all the activity that is going to happen a little bit later today. We also do have a vantage point now. I want to show you, everybody. This is what we call a quadruple box, quad box for short. So we've got the White House on the top left-hand side of your screen. We've got that vantage point of Capitol Hill that we've been taking a look at this morning a lot. We've got the vantage point on the bottom left that I just showed you of the Marines there. And then on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, that is at Joint Base Andrews. Matter of fact, I'm going to take that in full for you now, where President Trump is going to participate in a ceremony, make some remarks before boarding Air Force One and heading right here down to Florida to live when he is no longer President of the United States. I'm going to take you out next to an interview that NewsNOW from Fox's Daytona Everett did, talking about not just the presidential transition, but also the First Lady transition.
You're watching News Now from Fox. I'm Daytona Everett. I'm joined now by Dr. Lauren Wright. She is a political scientist at Princeton. She's been with us before. Dr. Wright, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me back.
So let's focus in a little bit on the transition of first ladies. Last time we spoke, we said, hey, it's going to be looking a little bit different this year. Melania Trump just released a video message. What are your thoughts of that and this new age of releasing these farewell messages on social media?
So it's very difficult to talk about the First Lady's transition without talking about the obvious gap that we've seen in the president's transition this year, because such an important tradition that typically happens before inauguration is the incoming administration is really welcomed with open arms by the outgoing one, and particularly the First Ladies and First Families make that happen, and it sends a very important message of unity to the public, and it's very relatable. And we don't have any of that this year, and it is a cost to the country, because if you think about the very large percentage of Americans who still believe the election was stolen, even though it wasn't, about 1 in 5 Americans are okay with what happened in the attacks on Capitol Hill on the 6th. So this is an extremely divided country. You would hope in that situation that we would focus especially on unity and especially on peaceful transition of power. But as much as we want that, it's just very hard to do with a president who had such an active role in what happened on January 6th.
You know, for people who don't know, what does that transition traditionally look like from one first lady to the next?
Sure. So there's a range. Some first ladies don't have very close relationships, and some have already been in the White House very often. So obviously in modern history, Laura Bush was familiar, fairly so, with the White House and the East Wing from her mother-in-law's time in office. And luckily, Jill Biden this time is very familiar with the inner workings of the White House from working very closely with Michelle Obama as second lady. That doesn't mean, however, that it's not nice to have a tour of the White House, to talk to the incoming administration about some challenges or logistics. But again, I think it's just almost impossible to expect that after such a contentious few months since the election. And so, you know, even though Melania Trump attempted a unifying, peaceful message in her farewell video, that really does not strike a fitting tone with a lot of Americans who are angry and sad and in fact scared about security risks. And so in a typical year, I would tell you that the First Lady is part and parcel of a process that helps us support the peaceful transition of power. It's a big part of public messaging and relatability. But in this year, it's very tough to expect the East Wing to carry that communications weight when such disturbing things are still happening in the West Wing.
Also highlighted in that video message, though, was Melania touting some of the things that she has accomplished during her time as First Lady, one of those being Be Best, her group helping out kids and everything. What is Jill Biden going to be doing stepping into this new role?
So what she said publicly, at least, is that she will work on education as a core issue. And we remember her DNC speech was in an empty classroom. That's something she has personal experience with and a lot of knowledge of, especially helping community colleges get more resources and encouraging students to go to community college. And then she also has mental health projects. She has a military families initiative that she actually started with Michelle Obama when she was second lady. And so she's indicated she will continue those things. And what you normally expect for a first lady's project, if you will, is for it to connect closely to the president's policy agenda. That's when these projects work best, is when they're in fact frames for sometimes very controversial policy initiatives that need more public support. And it's something first ladies are comfortable with, they have experience with, and they have to be passionate about them. So, rather than just something that's a box to check or fluff, these projects that first ladies take on tend to be extremely important tools for the White House to communicate its policy message to the public.
I mean, like we said before, she's had this second lady role. She's now going to be first lady. How different are those? What are the differences?
That's a great question. I don't think I've been asked that before. It's similar and different in a couple of ways. The second lady is not quite as publicly active. They're not quite as well known or popular as the first lady. And so they don't have typically this full suite of tools available to them to fully push the White House's agenda. First ladies have more of those, but they can act in a very supportive fashion to the first lady and the president, and they're highly valued surrogates, both on the campaign trail and in the White House. So I guess more of a force multiplier, an extra person to deploy who the public is very interested in. But many of the core functions, in fact, mirror what the East Wing is doing. And so Jill Biden, having worked closely with the Obama administration, specifically Michelle Obama in that regard, will absolutely be helpful here.
And for the first time ever, we're going to have a second gentleman. What does that role entail?
I actually think this is very important because, people who study gender like me and other social scientists have been wondering exactly how much of these first and second spouse roles are gendered responsibilities. And Doug Emhoff, by really taking on with open arms his role as second spouse, second gentleman, has now been the institutionalized title. I think that's very important because we will have eventually a first gentleman. It might even be him for all we know in 4 years. And so setting the standard for a male spouse to be equally active, to have his own projects, and to support his spouse, who is the office holder, in this case, the Vice President, Kamala Harris, is a really important point in history. And so he is the first. He will be active. He's taking the role very seriously. He has a chief of staff who's very experienced, and that will set things on a positive track.
What is he going to be moving forward with? What are his focuses?
So he's from what I've seen, a little broader, and maybe he will home in more on this as we get into the first 100 days. But he has said he's very interested in justice reforms. He obviously is a very accomplished entertainment lawyer, I believe is his practice. And he'll be teaching at Georgetown. So again, it's not so different from a female spouse. He'll do something where his skill set and his professional background can support his project, but it also has to be something that he's very interested in and can spend a lot of time on.
you know, he's not the only one who wants to continue teaching. Jill has said that she wants to continue teaching. I'm sure critics are saying, can you do that and also be first lady?
So critics have always said either the first lady is too active or not active enough. And, you know, the median opinion, if you will, tends to be that it's such a tremendous platform and there's such an opportunity to improve people's lives that Americans have wanted an active, transparent, responsive first lady. And to accomplish that, you have to have a very professionalized, organized office with quite a few staffers. And so until the Trump administration, we've seen those staffs become more specialized. You know, Michelle Obama had staff that had special skill sets, either in education or healthcare policy. Laura Bush had one director of policy and projects, but it was taken very seriously. And so all of that to say that if Dr. Biden wants to be a very active spouse, which I assume she will be, she will need a very serious team, and she will need to take the role seriously, which I have no doubt she will. And she will have to delegate some of the social responsibilities, some of the other responsibilities to staff that she has to help her walk both of those tight ropes, if you will, and do both jobs. But it is a precedent being set for future spouses, and again, a historic first, as you mentioned.
Yeah, right. So looking into the inauguration ceremonies, we're going to be seeing Michelle Obama, we're going to be seeing Laura Bush. Do you think these women will somewhat act as the type of transition that Melania Trump was supposed to be originally?
That's an interesting question. Laura Bush and Michelle Obama are very popular, and when I study first ladies and I tell people about my results, one of the continuous results is first ladies tend to be more popular than their husbands and more popular than the vice president. And that's why they shoulder so much of the public messaging burden that the White House has. So I think in that fashion, the public wants to see former first ladies. And moreover, the fact that Laura Bush and Michelle Obama have a very good working relationship and have respect for one another, and they're from two different parties, highlights the unity that we are starved for in this country, frankly, right now. And so maybe that will be a very important image for those former first families, and Bill and Hillary Clinton are included in that too.
Yeah, and you know, Michelle Obama obviously has already worked with Jill Biden in the past, so a sense of comfort as well for her to be stepping back into the White House.
Yes, definitely. And, you know, I think we'll see a continuation in some ways of her legacy as second lady, but also some very important new first steps that will, again, expand the options for future presidential spouses and change the way that we see the role.
Anything that you're going to be looking for throughout Inauguration Day?
Well, like all political communication scholars, I'll be fascinated with the speech. Obviously, as we've heard, as reporting has indicated, Joe Biden will focus heavily on unifying the country, but that's a very difficult task. And it's an extra high bar this year because we've had such a tumultuous last couple of months. How do you do that, again, when so much of the country is scared and feels fairly hopeless, and you're coming into office not only with tremendous partisan divides, but an economic crisis and a pandemic? That is the task that he has to accomplish, and he must hit on all of these notes in a way that resonates with as many people as possible. It's a big job.
Yeah, huge job. Well, Dr. Lauren Wright here, political scientist with Princeton and an expert in the transition of power between first ladies. We appreciate you being with us on News Now from Fox.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we are taking a live look now at the podium that President Donald Trump will be speaking at Joint Base Andrews not too long from now. There is Air Force One. The president will be flying it down to Florida. It's such a historic and such a different day. Joining us live right here on News Now from Fox is Jaime Dominguez. He is the Associate Professor of Political Science at Northwestern University. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Great. Thank you. So we wanted to talk to you about everything that is not happening today that traditionally does, starting with President Trump not even attending the inauguration.
Yeah, I think that's very historic. I think it's been a 150 plus year tradition of the previous or the outgoing president congratulating the incoming president. And so I think it just sends a message that to this day, President Trump just has not accepted the transition and, more importantly, the electoral loss that he suffered in November. And I think it's going to perhaps just make it a little bit more difficult in the immediate, from a governance perspective, for Joe Biden's administration to get the support of the majority of Americans because of the fact that the president does have, more than 74 million Americans voted for him. So the fact that he hasn't lent that support to the Biden administration, I think that's historic just in and of itself.
So President Trump said there was going to be a peaceful transition of power, but he never actually conceded, right?
That's correct. And so that's why it's very difficult when you hear elected officials and party officials talk about unity and bringing the country together. I know that's been Biden's priority. In fact, that's why he was elected. It's very difficult to make such requests when you don't concede what has actually happened. And what, unfortunately, because of the inability to concede, we saw what happened on January 6th. And so I think what the Biden administration needs to do is this is how it's going to be, and he just needs to look forward and focus and deliver a strong message to the American public this afternoon that he is hitting the ground running. His priorities are in order, which is to address the COVID situation, really, because it's been ravaging our country. We also connected to that. He has to address economically how he plans to put in place measures that can help us as a country regenerate our economy, create jobs, put money in people's pockets. And also, I think just in terms of trying to bring the Republican Party and the Democratic Party together so that they can work on governing. And there has to be a lot of compromise. So therefore, it's going to require the cooperation of both sides of the political aisle.
What about the traditions that we are not going to be seeing? In particular, President Trump has not left a letter for Joe Biden when he takes office.
Yeah, well, everything that he's done so far since being elected to office has been very kind of unorthodox. So here we go. This is a good example of that as well. Again, I think it's about just traditions and norms. And in this case, we're talking about an exchange of political pleasantries. Even if it may seem as trivial, it's not, because I think from a visual standpoint, I think it's very, very important for Americans, and particularly our young population, to be able to see, in fact, that, no matter your differences, no matter how much you disagree, even though you're diametrically opposite on policy issues, that, you have to accept kind of responsibility, and you have to accept defeat, and that happens in everybody's life at some point, but you have to move on. And I think, so I think that's sending a very negative message. But again, I think that Biden and his administration just cannot get distracted by that. But it's very unfortunate, because I think it's also when you write the letter, when you just like when Obama offered Trump the opportunity also to come to the Washington to accept, right, the defeat, despite the fact that, the whole birther issue was, I think, a reason enough to not do that. But Obama understood that this is larger than him. It's larger than the Democratic Party when he was in office. This is about America. This is about our democratic process. And this is it's important for us to to show not only our country, but also foreign nations that this is democracy in practice. This is how an exchange of peaceful power occurs. And as a country that preaches that from a global perspective, I think that, it's unfortunate for us. But again, we can't get distracted by that because we have a lot of issues to deal with going forward as a nation.
Mr. Dominguez, I wanted to let everybody know that we do still have your voice, your interview happening live right now, but we also have a live picture of Marine One arriving at the South Lawn of the White House. So that's currently what I have up on our broadcast right now, because we're all about these live pictures and everybody's interested in seeing history in the making. And if you wouldn't mind, we just aired a story about the transition of power in terms of first ladies as well. Let's talk about that tradition that's not occurring. Melania Trump is not giving Dr. Jill Biden a gift.
Yeah, again, this is it may seem trivial for a lot of people, but it's just an exchange of political pleasantries. I think again, to exchange a gift means that you are welcoming, ushering in a new family, you're ushering in a new administration, and that she supports Joe Biden as the next first lady, but the fact that she's not doing that, I think again just sends a rancorous message, right? That they're not okay with what has occurred. So again, I think it's not good, but what can we do?
Do you know historically what sort of gifts are given? Is it like a fruit basket, flowers? What's normally exchanged?
It's ornament. It could be a Christmas ornament. It could be just a simple something just nothing to awe at. It's just more just a recognition. I think that again I'm here to accept the new transition, and that this is just a gesture of goodwill. It's essentially that's what it is. It's a gesture of goodwill. So I don't think the actual gift matters so much.
Do you have any predictions for what's going to happen to President Trump and Melania Trump now that they are leaving the White House? And matter of fact, they're coming down here to Florida. What do you think's next for them?
Well, I think for them, I think he's going to try to remain relevant politically. He is going to have some financial issues that he's going to have to address, particularly with the Southern District Attorney of New York, even though he's not residing there, but there's going to be some legal lawsuits coming on that front. I think he's going to have to deal on one front with that, but at the same time, he's going to try to remain relevant in party politics, particularly within the Republican Party. Melania Trump, even as a first lady, we saw that she was very low key. She didn't seem to like the spotlight as much as previous first ladies. So for her, I think she's just going to attend to raising her son Barron and attending to her immediate family needs.
All right, Mr. Dominguez, thank you so much for joining us here on News Now from Fox, and hopefully we'll be talking with you again soon in the future about politics.
Very good. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure being with you guys.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night. We
are taking a live look now, everybody, at our nation's capital. All eyes are on Capitol Hill today and Washington, D.C. The stage is set. The flags are hung. There's thousands of members of security out there. We also have a live picture of the podium that President Donald Trump is going to be speaking at in just moments. Again, I do want to provide to you the plan. So here it is, as you can see. 8:10 Marine One is supposed to arrive at Joint Base Andrews. You just witnessed it arriving on the South Lawn of the White House. As a matter of fact, I have that vantage point for you right now, so let me change the live picture that you're looking at. There you go. 8:15, there's going to be that ceremony there at Joint Base Andrews. 8:35, President Trump boards Air Force One, and 20 minutes after that, it is going to be departing, heading right here for Florida. Rain Augustine's going to be coming up in a few moments here, everybody, on News Now from Fox. What I'm going to do for you, though, is play the COVID memorial service that happened in D.C. last night. President-elect Joe Biden, as well as Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, were there.
Thank you, Lori. As I said to His Eminence as we were waiting to come in, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, if there are any angels in heaven, they're all nurses. We know from our family experience what you do, the courage and the pain you absorb for others. So thank you. Thank you. Your Eminence, Cardinal Gregory and Yolanda Adams, to heal, we must remember. It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal. It's important to do that as a nation. That's why we're here today. Between sundown and dusk, let us shine the lights in the darkness along the sacred pool of reflection. Remember all whom we lost.
Thank you, Cardinal Gregory, for that beautiful prayer. We gather tonight, a nation in mourning, to pay tribute to the lives we have lost. A grandmother or grandfather who was our whole world. A parent, partner, sibling, or friend who we still cannot accept is no longer here. And for many months, we have grieved by ourselves. Tonight, we grieve and begin healing together. Though we may be physically separated, we, the American people, are united in spirit. And my abiding hope, my abiding prayer, is that we emerge from this ordeal with a new wisdom, to cherish simple moments, to imagine new possibilities, and to open our hearts just a little bit more to one another. It is now my great honor to introduce Lori Marie Key. Lori is a nurse at St. Mary Mercy Livonia Hospital outside of Detroit. Her community was hit hard when the virus struck, and Lori was assigned to the COVID unit. Lori is known for singing on the hospital floor, and a video of her singing a certain hymn inspired our nation. She joins us this evening to honor those we have lost with that same hymn, Amazing Grace. I want to encourage everyone to get the vaccine. It is relatively painless. It happens really quickly. It is safe. The Moderna, the Pfizer today, I had the Moderna vaccine. My husband is going to have it today as well. I look forward to getting the second vaccine. Thanks, guys. How are you? I know. It's sick. Had everybody outside. It's an interesting time. Yeah, it's a rough time. Thank you, Madam Vice President. We're very excited about this.
Good morning, everyone. If you are just now joining us, my name is Rain Augustine. I will be your host for the next few hours right here on News Now from Fox on this Inauguration Day. In just a few hours, we will witness the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden as the 46th President of the United States and of Vice President Kamala Harris. We have a very packed show today. We will be interviewing a lot of experts as they speak on the historical impact of the inauguration. And coming up in just about 30 minutes, now we all know that the United States has been emotionally charged the past couple of weeks especially. So we will have an interview with mental toughness experts Eric Rittmeyer on what we all can do to have thought-provoking yet respectful conversations amid all of the political chaos that we witness. But right now you're going to see a quick 2-minute break right here on News Now from Fox.
My fellow Americans, 4 years ago, we launched a great national effort to rebuild our country, to renew its spirit, and to restore the allegiance of this government to its citizens. In short, we embarked on a mission to make America great again for all Americans. As I conclude my term as the 45th President of the United States, I stand before you truly proud of what we have achieved together. We did what we came here to do, and so much more. This week, we inaugurate a new administration and pray for its success in keeping America safe and prosperous. We extend our best wishes, and we also want them to have luck, a very important word. I'd like to begin by thanking just a few of the amazing people who made our remarkable journey possible. First, let me express my overwhelming gratitude for the love and support of our spectacular First Lady, Melania. Let me also share my deepest appreciation to my daughter Ivanka, my son-in-law Jared, and to Barron, Don, Eric, Tiffany, and Lara. You fill my world with light and with joy. I also want to thank Vice President Mike Pence, his wonderful wife Karen, and the entire Pence family. Thank you as well to my Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, the dedicated members of the White House staff, and the Cabinet, and all of the incredible people across our administration who poured out their heart and soul to fight for America. I also want to take a moment to thank a truly exceptional group of people, the United States Secret Service. My family and I will forever be in your debt. My profound gratitude as well to everyone in the White House Military Office, the teams of Marine One and Air Force One, every member of the armed forces, and state and local law enforcement all across our country. Most of all, I want to thank the American people. To serve as your president has been an honor beyond description. Thank you for this extraordinary privilege, and that's what it is, a great privilege and a great honor. We must never forget that while Americans will always have our disagreements, we are a nation of incredible, decent, faithful, and peace-loving citizens who all want our country to thrive and flourish and be very, very successful and good. We are a truly magnificent nation. All Americans were horrified by the assault on our Capitol. Political violence is an attack on everything we cherish as Americans. It can never be tolerated. Now more than ever, we must unify around our shared values and rise above the partisan rancor and forge our common destiny. 4 years ago, I came to Washington as the only true outsider ever to win the presidency. I had not spent my career as a politician, but as a builder looking at open skylines and imagining infinite possibilities. I ran for president because I knew there were towering new summits for America just waiting to be scaled. I knew the potential for our nation was boundless as long as we put America first. So I left behind my former life and stepped into a very difficult arena, but an arena nevertheless with all sorts of potential if properly done. America had given me so much, and I wanted to give something back. Together with millions of hardworking patriots across this land, we built the greatest political movement in the history of our country. We also built the greatest economy in the history of the world. It was about America first because we all wanted to make America great again. We restored the principle that a nation exists to serve its citizens. Our agenda was not about right or left. It wasn't about Republican or Democrat, but about the good of a nation, and that means the whole nation. With the support and prayers of the American people, we achieved more than anyone thought possible. Nobody thought we could even come close. We passed the largest package of tax cuts and reforms in American history. We slashed more job-killing regulations than any administration had ever done before. We fixed our broken trade deals, withdrew from the horrible Trans-Pacific Partnership and the impossible Paris Climate Accord, renegotiated the one-sided South Korea deal, and we replaced NAFTA with the groundbreaking USMCA. That's Mexico and Canada, a deal that's worked out very, very well. Also, and very importantly, we imposed historic and monumental tariffs on China, made a great new deal with China. But before the ink was even dry, we and the whole world got hit with the China virus. Our trade relationship was rapidly changing. Billions and billions of dollars were pouring into the U.S., but the virus forced us to go in a different direction. The whole world suffered, but America outperformed other countries economically because of our incredible economy and the economy that we built. Without the foundations and footings, it wouldn't have worked out this way. We wouldn't have some of the best numbers we've ever had. We also unlocked our energy resources and became the world's #1 producer of oil and natural gas, by far. Powered by these policies, we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. We reignited America's job creation and achieved record low unemployment for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, women, almost everyone. Income soared, wages boomed, the American dream was restored, and millions were lifted from poverty in just a few short years. It was a miracle. The stock market set one record after another, with 148 stock market highs during this short period of time, and boosted the retirements and pensions of hardworking citizens all across our nation. 401ks are at a level they've never been at before. We've never seen numbers like we've seen, and that's before the pandemic and after the pandemic. We rebuilt the American manufacturing base, opened up thousands of new factories, and
You're watching News Now from Fox. We are awaiting President Trump to leave the White House. He is departing the White House for the very last time as president, leaving Joint Base Andrews.
You're watching News Now from Fox. We are taking a live look from the South Lawn of the White House as President Donald Trump leaves the White House for the last time as President of the United States. He is headed to Joint Base Andrews, ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's Inauguration Day. Today, he will be sworn in as the 46th President of the United States and is expected to sign a series of executive orders shortly after that. Stay with News Now from Fox as we will be following Inauguration Day coverage all day. Once President Donald Trump makes it to Joint Base Andrews, we do expect him to deliver a few remarks. We will bring you those live and unfiltered right here on News Now from Fox.
Not the case, and it's been very clear and very public. We know that with Joe Biden, Trump not attending Joe Biden's inauguration, Biden said that this was one of the few things that he and Trump could agree on, his decision to skip the ceremony. So certainly no love lost between the two. But again, Vice Pence trying to keep with tradition and attending today's ceremony.
See, Jeanette, this is why we have the best producers in the world. I mentioned Blair House, and immediately they put up a shot of Blair House, which is what you were just looking at right before we switched back to Andrews Air Force Base. Blair House is the vice president, was invited to stay there and did stay there last night. Again, he will be heading to church at 8:45 this morning before going to the Capitol, where, of course, things will really start to ramp up at about 10:30 this morning, and then you'll start to see the oaths of office administered starting just a little after 11:30 up until the president-elect will take the oath of office at 12 o'clock. And at that point, President Trump will no longer be president.
Yeah, down to the last few hours of his presidency. You know, despite some of the, some of the political divisiveness that we've seen over the last few years, especially the last couple of weeks even, it is really just incredible to witness this moment in history. There are so many things here that have been tradition for decades and decades, centuries in the United States, and to be able to witness this live is just incredible to see.
Tradition has played such a big role in things, but again, it's not mandated. It's done a lot of times out of respect for events that have happened in the past, but there is no set rule or guideline for how a president leaves the office, and President Trump is chosen to do things his way, which is what has endeared him to so many people over the last four and a half years. But you know, on the other hand, there are many people who are saying this perhaps is disrespectful because he's not following the traditions that have been set in place in the past. But again, not bound by any type of law. He can do as he chooses, and he chooses to leave now.
I think people would be surprised at how few things are mandatory when it comes to, or required by the Constitution when it comes to inauguration, the oath being one of them. Word for word, it needs to be said a certain way. But as far as the peaceful transfer of power and how that is done, it is not required. And certainly Trump is opting to do what most of his predecessors have not done, including President Barack Obama. We know that there was a lot of divisiveness during that period of time in terms of politics, and the Obamas chose to stick with tradition. We're going to be heading to Bob Barnard, I believe, now live. He is live outside of the church where Joe Biden will be attending Mass this morning. Is that correct? Bob,
yeah,
good morning.
We are here on, hey, good morning. Do you hear me there, Jeanette?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're here on Rhode Island Avenue, and you can see a lot of law enforcement. You have D.C. police here. We have New York City police who are lining the street here. They've sent a special operations team from New York City down here to help with security. Officer Zone is here closest to our camera. Also, Homeland Security, police, and uniformed Secret Service. We have been seeing, and it's tough because we're a block away. We're at 17th Street here, maybe 150 yards or so from the front entrance to the cathedral. So it's hard to see, but we have been watching as VIPs enter the church, the cathedral. Have not seen anyone that we recognize yet. We do know that Republican leaders are going to be here from Congress, and also Democratic leaders. And we're wondering if perhaps the Obamas, the Bushes, and the Clintons will be here as well. We know they'll be at Arlington Cemetery with the then 46th President Joe Biden later this afternoon. But there are Secret Service limousines here that look like presidential limousines, which lead us to believe that perhaps the former presidents and first ladies will be here at the church service, which is supposed to begin later this hour. We don't believe, as you see the helicopter heading Marine One, still Marine One, heading to Andrews with President Trump on board. We don't believe the president-elect has yet left Blair House, but it's only a few-minute drive. We're just several blocks north of Pennsylvania Avenue, which is where Blair House is, right across the street from the White House. And we're just a few blocks south of DuPont Circle, but a huge police presence. This will be the first place we will see the president-elect, the vice president-elect, their spouses, and other VIPs in this hour, and perhaps just minutes away, guys, under heavy police security. And the deal is we are technically outside the secure zone. So that's why there's extra police here, because we're outside the perimeter that the National Guard is helping to maintain.
Bob, thanks. We'll check back in with Bob in a few minutes. We want to get back to Shirin Rajae. She's right across the street from the White House. You have a great view of the White House this morning, Shirin. I was trying to follow along the flight path. I don't know how much you could see once the chopper took off above the White House, but it almost looked to me as if Marine One was taking a little bit of a detoured approach, almost like they wanted a final flight over the city before heading east to Andrews.
Absolutely, actually, Steve. It did do a flyover. It was pretty remarkable to see the final moments as the president boarded Marine One, lifted off from the south lawn of the White House, and we saw actually circulate around and kind of make a tour around D.C., kind of passing over, our area here. Black Lives Matter Plaza is on the other side before making its way back over there to head over to Joint Base Andrews. So a pretty amazing scene to see as we kind of end one administration and start another. And of course, all of this normally takes place at the end of an inauguration. After the president has welcomed the president-elect into the White House, they do a tour. They usually do a coffee and tea. They ride together from the White House to the Capitol. A lot of these peaceful transfer of power rituals will not be taking place this year, which is what is making this all so unprecedented, as the president has decided not to attend Joe Biden's inauguration. He is actually the fourth president who has boycotted his successor's inauguration in over 150 years. So a very different feel for this inauguration in many ways because of COVID, because of all the layers of security that we have. But the big elephant in the room is that the president of the United States will not be here to greet the president-elect, to greet Dr. Jill Biden as they come in and they welcome them into the new house as a first family. So a lot of changes that we're experiencing experiencing this year, but after an unprecedented last few weeks at the White House. So President Trump has officially left the White House. He'll be going to Joint Base Andrews for his farewell speech and ceremony, a military-style ceremony. We are expecting him to speak at that ceremony. He is expected, like he mentioned in his video last night, to thank the people that supported him, thank the people that helped him along the way, but also sending a message that his time is not over just yet. So more to come from the former President Trump, or soon-to-be former President Trump, as he left here at the White House. Back to you.
Sharon, thanks very much. And Sharon, right behind you, it's we talk with and Jeanette, we'll bring you back into the conversation.
Home in the world, I call it a home. We've had an amazing 4 years. We've accomplished a lot. We love the American people, and again, it has been something very special. And I just want to say goodbye, but hopefully it's not a long-term goodbye. We'll see each other again. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
You're watching News Now from Fox. That was President Trump and First Lady Melania departing the South Lawn of the White House, headed to Joint Base Andrews, where we expect him to make his final remarks as President of the United States. You're watching News Now from Fox, and we will return right after this commercial break.
This was in real time. You can see just how close the White House is by air to Andrews Air Force Base. It really only takes a couple of minutes to get there. I know all of you who have been on the Beltway and tried to make that drive will disagree with that and say it seems like it takes forever. But when you're the President of the United States and you have Marine One taking you, it really only takes a couple of minutes. And keep in mind, since we saw Marine One lift off from the White House, as Sharon Roger confirmed for us, the President did do a bit of a flyover of D.C., doing a few circles, if you wish, to perhaps either as a sign of thanks to those who have supported him in the district, or perhaps the President just wanted to take a final look around the city, peering out from Marine One before leaving. So had he not done that, the journey to Andrews would have been even shorter. But there you see Marine One and the helicopter that accompanies it on these journeys from the White House back and forth. The presidential shuttle service, if you will, has now landed and touched down safely at Andrews Air Force Base, Joint Base Andrews.
Absolutely. It's just a remarkable sight to see here. It's a break in tradition, but again, I mean, so much that's happened over the last few weeks, really even in the last couple of weeks with what happened at the Capitol has been unprecedented, something that we've not seen before. This is something that we have not seen before, with the President having an early departure, leaving the D.C. area and spending his last few hours in outside of the D.C. area, as opposed to with his successor. In this case, it would be President-elect Joe Biden.
Pretty amazing shot right there. Marine One and Air Force One just right next to each other. What will happen now? The president will exit Marine One. There is a stage set up with his supporters. We do expect him to make some remarks. We don't know at this point what he will say. A lot of times the White House will give a heads up or an advance as to what some of these statements will be if they are prepared remarks, which is much like what we saw with the recorded message that was released yesterday afternoon as his farewell address to the nation. These remarks today, we don't know at this point what he might say, where he may go with it, but it does appear like he will, at least, if nothing else, thank the supporters who came out on this very chilly January morning to Andrews Air Force Base to wish him well and wish him off as he boards Air Force One for the last time.
And speaking of the remarks he gave yesterday, they weren't nearly as controversial as some of his other speeches in the last couple of weeks. He didn't specifically name Joe Biden, his successor, but he did say he wished the administration well, and he touted some of his successes throughout his administration, saying that they achieved what they set out to do and much, much more. So we'll see if his remarks today fall in line with that tone that we saw yesterday, or if perhaps it'll be a departure from that and he'll want to leave on a little bit of an unexpected note, which is, again, something that we've come to expect from President Trump, to not necessarily act in the way that other presidents have. And it's the reason why his supporters love him so much, because he doesn't necessarily act in a traditional or speak in a traditional way. So we'll have to see how he plans on ending his presidency in terms of the remarks that he makes this morning.
All right, it will likely be a few minutes before he comes out and does address the supporters who have come out today. And as we mentioned before, He invited many of his supporters and told them to, bring family, bring friends, come out to Andrews for the final farewell. So that's why we do anticipate that he will say something. And when we go back to the wider shot of the stage with the aircraft behind it, you'll be able to see the flags that are there, along with some of the people who are braving the chilly conditions. And while, if you're looking at the screen right now, sure, it says 41 degrees. Keep in mind there's a 20 to 30 mile an hour steady wind out there this morning. So it is very cold out there, whether at Andrews or whether it be at the U.S. Capitol.
Oh, we're hearing some music there playing in the background. It's been interesting to see. He did invite some congressional leaders, some of what have been Trump loyalists over the last few years. And in the last few weeks, a lot of the people, Kevin McCarthy being one of them, a lot of the people who usually are loyal to Trump have tried to strike a bit of a different tone with the incoming administration, saying that the election was legitimate, recognizing President-elect Joe Biden as the next president, legitimate president of the United States. Vice President Mike Pence also attending the inauguration. So it's been interesting to see how in these last few hours of Trump's presidency, some of his loyalists, fierce loyalists, have decided to fall in line with tradition and recognize the next president of the United States.
All right, the rotor has stopped. The steps are down. The Marine Guard has left the aircraft. The president about to walk out of Marine One for the final time as president of the United States. This is not the way that he anticipated leaving Washington, should it ever come to that day. One of the reasons why he wanted to have a big send-off today, he wanted to be surrounded by supporters. As you mentioned, Jeanette, many of the people he invited opted to not show up today. Many of the top congressional leaders opted to spend the day with the incoming president instead of with the outgoing president. Not at all what President Trump had hoped, as he wanted it to be essentially a blowout celebration of him as he left office. Now, we still don't know when he lands in Florida what the plans will be there, because keep in mind, he will still be president until 12 o'clock. So unless Air Force One has a delayed departure for some point, whether or not the speech goes long, we don't know how long that's going to be here at Andrews. But unless there's some type of delayed departure for Air Force One, he will certainly arrive in Florida still as the president of the United States, well before noon. It's about a 2-hour and 20-minute flight.
And again, we don't know what he is going to say, but Trump has stuck to what he has said since November, since the election results came out. He believes that he won by a landslide, that the election is not legitimate. And so it would be surprising if he were to say anything that's different from that tone. But he will speak one last time. They're introducing him right now, where we expect again for him to make some final remarks.
Donald J. Trump and Melania Trump.
And typically when leaving the aircraft, and you saw him kind of lean up into the cabin there, a final thanks for the service members who obviously are the best of the best when it comes to protecting our nation's leadership. And I've had the opportunity to talk with a number of those pilots over the years. And it doesn't matter who the president of the United States is. It's just like Secret Service. You are there to protect them, and you're there to do your job. And they take that seriously. And it is a huge honor to be the pilot who has the opportunity to be at the controls when the president is on board. And there you see the cannons firing at Joint Base Andrews as the president and the first lady have walked over to start to greet some of their supporters, with remarks coming shortly.
This is the type of send-off on a much smaller scale that the president wanted. He wanted a recognition of him departing, something independent from Joe Biden, which is what we're seeing now. And of course, his biggest fans in the crowd there, again, a much smaller crowd, giving him his final send-off from the D.C. area.
For him, though, a moment of pride, I'm sure, to be surrounded by his supporters, to have the visual. And as a president, he's been all about the visuals many times. So let's listen in to his final remarks in the D.C. area as president.
Thank you very much. And we love you. And I can tell you that from the bottom of my heart. This has been an incredible 4 years. We've accomplished so much together. I want to thank all of my family and my friends and my staff and so many other people for being here. I want to thank you for your effort, your hard work. People have no idea how hard this family worked. They worked, and they worked for you. They could have had a much easier life, but they did a fantastic job. I just want to thank all of you, everyone. I want to thank Mark Meadows, who's here, someplace right there. I want to thank Mark. But it's been something very special. We've accomplished a lot. Our First Lady has been a woman of great grace and beauty and dignity. And so popular with the people, so popular with the people. In fact, honey, would you like to say a few words, please?
Being your First Lady was my greatest honor. Thank you for your love and your support. You will be in my thoughts and prayers. God bless you all. God bless your families. And God bless this beautiful nation. Thank you.
What else has to be said, right? But what we've done, that's true, honey, great job. What we've done has been amazing by any standard. We rebuilt the United States military. We created a new force called Space Force. That in itself would be a major achievement for a regular administration. We were not a regular administration. We took care of the vets, 91% approval rating. They've never had that before. The vets have given us, the VA, the vets have given us an approval rating like has never been before. We took care of our vets and our beautiful vets. They were very badly treated before we came along. And as you know, we get them great service and we pick up the bill and they can go out and they can see a doctor if they have to wait long periods of time. We got it so that we can sadly get rid of people that don't treat our vets properly. We didn't have any of those rights before when I came on, so our vets are happy, our people are happy, our military is thrilled. We also got tax cuts, the largest tax cut and reform in the history of our country by far. I hope they don't raise your taxes. But if they do, I told you so. And if you look at the regulations, which I consider the regulation cuts to be maybe even more important, that's why we have such good and have had such good job numbers. The job numbers have been absolutely incredible. When we started, had we not been hit by the pandemic, we would have had numbers that would never have been seen. Already our numbers are the best ever. If you look at what happened until February a year ago, our numbers were at a level that nobody had ever seen before. And even now, we really built it twice. We got hit. Nobody blames us for that. The whole world got hit, and then we built it again. And now the stock market is actually substantially higher than it was at its higher point prior to the pandemic. So it's really, you could say we built it twice. And you're going to see incredible numbers start coming in if everything is sort of left alone. Be careful. Very complex. Be careful. But you're going to see some incredible things happening. And remember us when you see these things happening, if you would. Remember us, because I'm looking at elements of our economy that are set to be a rocket ship up. It's a rocket ship up. We have the greatest country in the world. We have the greatest economy in the world. And as bad as the pandemic was, we were hit so hard, just like the entire world was hit so hard. Places that thought they got away with it didn't get away with it. They're suffering right now. We did something that is really considered a medical miracle. They're calling it a miracle, and that was the vaccine. We got the vaccine developed in 9 months instead of 9 years or 5 years or 10 years or a long time. It was supposed to take a long time, many, many years to develop a vaccine. We have 2 out. We have another one coming almost immediately. And it really is a great achievement. So you should start to see really good numbers over the next few months. I think you're going to see those numbers really skyrocket downward. And I can only say this, we have worked hard. We've left it all, as the athletes would say, we've left it all in the field. We don't have to come and say, we'll never say in a month when we're sitting in Florida. We're not going to be looking at each other and saying, you know, if we only worked a little bit harder, you can't work harder. And we had a lot of obstacles, and we went through the obstacles, and we just got 75 million votes, and that's a record in the history of sitting presidents. That's an all-time record by a lot, by many millions. In the history of sitting presidents, it's been really just an honor. One of the things we're very, very proud of is the selection of almost 300 federal judges and 3 great Supreme Court justices. That's a very big number. That's a record-setting number. And so we've done a lot, and there's still things to do. The first thing we have to do is pay our respects and our love to the incredible people and families who suffered so gravely from the China virus. It's a horrible thing that was put onto the world. We all know where it came from, but it's a horrible, horrible thing. So be very careful. Be very, very careful. But we want to pay great love to all of the people that have suffered, including families who have suffered so gravely. So with that, I just want to say you are amazing people. This is a great, great country. It is my greatest honor and privilege to have been your president. I will always fight for you. I will be watching, I will be listening, and I will tell you that the future of this country has never been better. I wish the new administration great luck and great success. I think they'll have great success. They have the foundation to do something really spectacular. And again, we put it in a position like it's never been before, despite the worst plague to hit since, I guess you'd say 1917, over 100 years ago. And despite that, the things that we've done have been just incredible, and I couldn't have done it without you. So just a goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form. And again, I want to just, in leaving, I want to thank our Vice President, Mike Pence, and Karen. I want to thank Congress, because we really worked well with Congress, at least certain elements of Congress. But we really did. We've gotten so much done that nobody thought would be possible. But I do want to thank Congress. And I want to thank all of the great people of Washington, D.C., all of the people that we worked with to put this miracle together. So have a good life. We will see you soon. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're watching News Now from Fox, and that was President Donald Trump's final farewell address as President of the United States.
Message. He knows his supporters, he knows his game plan, and in his last address he played off to all of them, as you would completely expect. Very appreciative of those who have supported him over the last 4+ years and making sure that they are aware of that. Also saying, as you see some of the family members there from the Trump family, including the newly engaged Tiffany Trump, saying, look, I wish the new administration luck, but backing that up with, I think they'll succeed because we created a great foundation for them. So that's Trump speak. That's the way that he is. And, looking forward, he did not mention Joe Biden by name, but did at least say that he wishes the new administration luck and thank members of Congress, some of which he quite candidly said, we got along with some better than others, but we do appreciate your time and your service.
And he also, I don't know if you've mentioned this already, Steve, but he did thank his Vice President Mike Pence and Karen Pence, the second lady, who declined the invitation to this event. They will be instead attending Joe Biden's inauguration. So what we saw here, they're about to board Air Force One, but more than 200 service members participated in today's event here for Donald Trump. They had a 21-gun salute, color guard, and other ceremonial units there as well. This is a more muted, smaller version of what Donald Trump wanted for his departure. But again, kind of breaking with tradition at the same time as Vice President or President-elect Joe Biden will be keeping with tradition as much as he can moving forward, given the circumstances with the pandemic and the heightened security alert.
Yeah, you're right. It's not the size of the crowd that he, I'm sure, had hoped for, but he did get the opportunity to spread what I'm sure he construes as a positive message, leaving with to the cheers, but also a sign of hope as he ticked off the list of his accomplishments. And there you see the final photos being taken of the president and Melania Trump boarding Air Force One for the final time at Andrews. The salute to the guard at the bottom of the stairs. And you saw Mark Meadows run over and give a final farewell. Of course, the president's chief of staff before he and the first lady had their walk for their final time up the stairs on Air Force One.
And Steve, what's interesting is because he's breaking with tradition in terms of not attending the inauguration and then flying off, he is boarding Air Force One and heading to Mar-a-Lago still as president of the United States. And that's about 2.5 hour, two and change flight there.
That's a moment right there that anybody would soak in.
Yeah.
And no matter if you're leaving the White House with bad feelings or great feelings, if you are seeing this end of a presidency with a sigh of relief that the stress of the job is over, or the bitterness of feeling that you should have been around for another 4 years, you will never forget that feeling at the top of those stairs, looking out over your supporters and boarding that plane that has taken you all around the world, and in President Trump's case, to places where presidents had not gone in the past. Boarding that for the final time and getting that final send-off will be etched in his memory for the rest of his life.
And it would make sense if Marine One did, in fact, kind of take that roundabout way to Joint Base Andrews, that perhaps he did that to soak it all in for one last time. Previous presidents, including Barack Obama, have talked about how emotional it is. Every presidency has its ups and downs. They're tumultuous in their own unique ways. With Barack Obama, it was the recession that the country was coming out of by the end of his term. At least his first 4 years. But with this presidency, Donald Trump is leaving while the country is still in the grips of a pandemic. The economy is still struggling. Millions of people are unemployed. And he said, Steve, as you mentioned, that he's leaving the new administration with a strong foundation, taking credit for that, and wish them the very best, again, without mentioning Joe Biden, but saying he wishes them the best of luck and they will do well. Thanks to him.
Yeah, there you see his children boarding the plane, as well as the Trump family members are also getting on board Air Force One as they head down to Florida, to Mar-a-Lago. They will be landing, of course, in West Palm Beach, and that's a trip that the Air Force One crew is very familiar with, the back and forth, but this the final time to leave. It will be interesting, Jeanette, as he mentioned, as we expected him to do, to say, we'll be back in some form.
Yeah.
And that's the big question now, is that, as you mentioned,
All right, if you're just now joining us, my name is Rain Augustine, and this is News Now from Fox. Right now, I am joined with political science professor at the University of Houston, Brandon Rottinghaus. Brandon, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Morning.
Brandon, we just saw a live look at President Trump's final farewell speech as President of the United States. President-elect Joe Biden is going to be sworn in as the 46th president in just a few hours, and a lot of people are looking forward to the first 100 days of his presidency. Now, can you talk to us a little bit about why is the first 100 days of presidency so crucial?
Well, traditionally, the president's first 100 days have been like a kind of a touchdown marker for how presidents might succeed. You've got to be able to put your team together. You've got to be able to drive. You've got to be able to get the ball in the end zone. This has been sort of a metric that we've used since the 1930s, since Franklin Roosevelt came into power, and he had a tremendously productive first 100 days. It's a little challenging because obviously the president can only do so much alone. So we have the standard, which is pretty dramatic and hard to fulfill, but obviously we still use that as a kind of guidepost to decide how well a president's doing. He's got a big agenda, and there's no way that it's going to work if you can't get the process moving quickly and hit the ground running.
So you mentioned that he has a big agenda. What are some of President-elect's initiatives that he plans to accomplish within these first 100 days?
I think that one big policy issue that they've got to confront is going to be the reaction to COVID-19 and the related economic downturn. So it has to be a both health-related component as well as an economic-related component. There are still millions of Americans who are suffering. There are still hundreds of millions of businesses who are hurting because of this. So this is definitely something that needs to be addressed, and the Vice President, now President-elect Biden, has a plan in place to be able to ask for Congress for more money. That's going to be a challenge because he's got members even of his own party who are reluctant to support that initiative. He's also got to work on making some changes to the immigration system. He's identified a proposal to be able to allow for path to citizenship for millions of individuals who are in this country. So that's going to be another big partisan fight. But I think the biggest issue he's got to confront is just the kind of general discomfort and unhappiness that a lot of people have with politics. And so that's going to be a tone that he can set early on with his inaugural speech today.
Now, Brandon, you mentioned congressional cooperation, right? So how quickly can Biden fulfill these promises and enact action?
They can move pretty fast. They probably want to wait because it's going to be a few more days before they get the new senators from Georgia sworn in. So they have a Democratic majority or near majority, because they still have to have Kamala Harris in the dais as vice president to cast a tie-breaking vote. The Senate also has to establish its rules, so they're not exactly sure precisely how they're going to organize a chamber that's literally straight divided. So they've got to be able to take a few beats on that. But within a week or so, they're going to be able to move full steam ahead. The Biden camp also needs to have their individual nominees to be confirmed. So that's going to take some time too. It's all going to happen pretty fast. It'll be a big whirlwind until things really start to settle in.
Now, the Biden administration has, of course, been very outwardly outspoken about the Trump administration. Are there any plans to maybe reverse some of the actions that the Trump administration had while they were in office?
The first cut at what the incoming president will do will definitely undo some of the things that the prior administration has done. To be honest, this is something that all presidents do. This is a kind of ping pong game that we see with executive orders on day one of virtually every president since Ronald Reagan. We will definitely see the vice president putting the U.S. back into the Paris Paris Climate Accords. You'll definitely also see some movement on immigration. There'll be some issues to try to invoke a mask mandate on federal property. So there are going to be some pretty significant changes, but executive orders can only go so far. It's not as good as legislation. So if they want to have something that's more permanent, then they've got to work through the legislative process.
I think a lot of people find it extremely interesting that President-elect Joe Biden is going to be the president. So do you think, are there any possibility maybe that Kamala Harris could be the next U.S. president following this trend?
This is a historic day in that, we have the first female vice president and the first woman of color who's going to be a vice president. So there are definitely high expectations. She, to some degree, is really the future of the Democratic Party. I mean, she's somebody who was, very close to Joe Biden through much of the ending of the primary season. She is very likely to be the next nominee for the Democratic Party. So this is definitely, in some ways, a proving ground for her. She could be functionally the most important vice president that the nation has had, and that really would bode well for her in her future political career. So in some ways, obviously things will change in 4 years, but it's clear that she's the heir apparent to the Democratic nomination for presidency, and how she and the administration handle their policy issues in the next 4 years is going to tell us a lot about how well that might work for her.
Now, Brandon, as a political science professor, I'm sure that this has been a very historic time for yourself and for your students. What is the most significant takeaway that you can kind of bring home during this time?
The most impactful events that have occurred have been, policy event, these big dramatic national, international moments, clearly. But aside from all of that, we take a step back and think about how the president and Congress interact. President Trump has shattered many norms that we have come to rely on for how presidents function. In some ways, it's been good for him. In some ways, it's been very bad for him. Obviously, the ending of his presidency created a lot of friction, and he's effectively been sort of banned from various social media enterprises. So we haven't had a president who's gone that far using the bully pulpit in 100 years. And Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson were accused of going too far and actually speaking on the stump to the American people. And Trump has taken that obviously to a whole new level. So that's one big change, just the norms shattering. And the other is how Congress and the president interact with each other. We have a separation of power system that relies on them to work together on some things. Obviously, there's going to be friction politically. There are going to be differences on policy, but we expect that those systems to work together. And that hasn't really been that effective. And it's not just a Trump phenomenon. It goes back to Obama and to George W. Bush. So the question for Joe Biden will be, how does he repair the relationship with Congress as an institution, not politically, but rather just as a chamber?
Professor of Politics at University of Houston, Brandon Rottinghouse, thank you so much for joining us on News Now from Fox. Right now, we are taking a live look at President Trump leaves Joint Andrews Base as he departs for Florida. Let's take a look.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay, thank you. Have a good one. You too.
Right, how much that riot had to do with Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy so publicly breaking with Donald Trump, right? You see the normal security that we would typically see around Inauguration Day, but then what we're seeing today, right? It's heightened significantly, and you can easily see it, and so much of that has to do with what happened on the Capitol. So I know a lot of people with President-elect Biden kind of extending, it appears, this olive branch to McCarthy and Mitch McConnell, are hoping that perhaps this is a sign of more unity when it comes to politics in the House and in the White House. And we'll have to see if this continues. But it is certainly remarkable to see how much things have shifted in terms of those who were loyal to Donald Trump and now are signaling that perhaps they'd like to start things out on a more positive note with soon-to-be President Joe Biden.
Yeah, and I mean, there's always security as we see Air Force One taking off from Joint Base Andrews, going wheels up at this moment. President Trump leaving Washington for the final time this morning, January 20th, 2021. There's always security around an inauguration. I mean, I covered when George Bush 20 years ago today was inaugurated president after the contentious 2000 campaign and election, and there was a lot of security there, but there were people lining Pennsylvania Avenue. We were there at the Navy Memorial, there was about 10 people deep on a kind of a freezing, rainy kind of morning, very cold morning, but there were people right there along Pennsylvania Avenue. The general public is being now, this time, 20 years later, this morning, being kept blocks away from what would normally be a parade route, not just because of the pandemic, obviously, but for security reasons as well.
Bob Barnett for us outside St. Matthews in D.C., where Joe Biden will soon be attending Mass with many members of Congress. Bob, thanks very much. We'll have many hours throughout the morning that we can continue to talk about this. And in the meantime, as we bid Bob adieu for a few minutes at least, we also bid adieu to the president as Air Force One is now leaving Washington, D.C. airspace for the final time with Donald Trump aboard as president of the United States. That'll do it for the 8 o'clock hour of Fox 5 Morning. Good Day at 9 starts now.
Straight ahead, the transfer of power. Today, Joe Biden becomes the 46th president of the United States, taking his oath of office in front of the U.S. Capitol exactly 2 weeks after those deadly riots.
To heal, we must remember. It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal.
The swearing-in ceremony unlike anything we've seen before. Tens of thousands of National Guard troops on standby for the possibility of violent protests. And the global pandemic means fans won't be able to pack them all to watch the historic event.
I want to thank the American people. To serve as your president has been an honor beyond description.
President Trump breaking tradition, ending his term in Florida instead of on stage with his successor.
Coming up, live team coverage as the historic inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris begins. A special edition of Good Day at 9 starts right now. Good day, D.C. It is 9 o'clock on this Inauguration Day, Wednesday, January 20th. I'm Jeanette Reyes alongside Steve, Holly, Marissa, and Wisdom. Thank you so much for staying with us.
If you are just tuning in, Donald Trump just wrapped up his final public remarks as president of the United States during a speech to supporters at Joint Base Andrews a few minutes ago, highlighting his administration's accomplishments and wishing the next administration the best of luck. Right now, he is on board Air Force One for one final flight to Florida. We're going to have much more on his final day in just a little bit. Also, I have complete coverage for you this morning of today's historic inauguration of Joe Biden from start to finish, and the packed day of events actually just got underway. Wisdom and Holly join us now with more of the details.
All right, everybody, big thanks to our sister station, Fox 5 in D.C., for all of their coverage. We've been taking it off and on this morning. We will continue to do so. A historic day for the nation, a new chapter as a transition of power has begun. It is the inauguration day for President-elect Joe Biden. That swearing in expected to start in less than 3 hours. You see there, noon, the swearing in ceremony. We will have it all for you right here on News Now from Fox. But again, good morning, everyone. My name is Pilar Arias. I am happy to be here with you, coming to you live from our News Now from Fox East Coast Hub right here in Orlando, Florida. Obviously, we've been covering President-elect Joe Biden a lot this morning, but we also have Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, and she is set to be the first Vice President-elect. So now we are going to talk about exactly how this is going to shape out as well in terms of what's going to go down for not just President-elect Joe Biden, but for Kamala Harris as well. Going to take a look at some video that we have for you right here to let you know that Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is actually going to be sworn in by Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor today. A history-making event in which the first Black, South Asian, and female vice president will take her oath of office from the first Latina justice. So history in itself for sure, lots going on. And I do have a little bit more background information that I'm going to read for you right here really quickly on News Now from Fox, just about this very historic moment. So again, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will be sworn in by Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. This history-making event in which the first Black, South Asian, and female vice president will take her oath of office from the first Latina justice. Harris chose Sotomayor for the task. According to a person familiar with the decision, she'll also use 2 Bibles for the swearing in, one of which belonged to Thurgood Marshall, the first Black Supreme Court justice. Harris has expressed admiration for both Sotomayor and Marshall. She and Sotomayor share experience in prosecutions, and she was once called Marshall, like Harris, a graduate of Howard University, one of her, quote, greatest heroes. So I had no idea that the vice president-elect actually got to choose who was going to do the swearing in, but that is the history there as to why it's going to happen. The vice president-elect said in a video posted to Twitter that she viewed Marshall as, quote, one of the main reasons I wanted to be a lawyer, calling him a fighter in the courtroom. Again, this will be the second time Sotomayor takes part in an inauguration. She swore in President-elect Joe Biden as vice president back in 2013. We are covering everything historical about the day right here on NewsNOW from Fox. Remember, this would not be possible without the help of our sister stations from across the country. So next, coming up here on NewsNOW from Fox, we're going to take you to a segment from our sister station, Fox 2 KTVU, talking about the family of the doctor who delivered Kamala Harris in Oakland, California, talking about their dad's connection to her family, plus being one of the first black doctors in the Bay Area in the 1960s. Let's listen in right here on NewsNOW from Fox.
It's such an exciting time because, well, of course, with Kamala and having the connection to our family is exciting.
Wendy Driver Gwynn and her brother Brad Driver are talking about a connection that goes back nearly 60 years. Their father, Dr. Maynard Douglas Driver, delivered Kamala Harris at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland on October 20th, 1964.
My dad was always, pushing to break barriers.
The family sees parallels between their father and Harris, from achievements to valuing hard work, public service, and having compassion for others. He was one of the first black OBGYNs in the Bay Area. Harris is the country's first black female vice president. Dr. Driver attended medical school at Howard University decades before Harris would graduate from the same college.
When my dad became a doctor, was going through medical school at Howard, it was very difficult for people of color to pursue those opportunities.
Driver moved his family from the East Coast to Oakland. He made a switch from psychiatry to obstetrics and gynecology. After a short time with Kaiser, he started his own private practice, his office above the former Lickberg Pharmacy at the corner of Telegraph and Webster in Berkeley. But being a black OBGYN in the 1960s wasn't without challenges.
He would tell us these stories about the kind of trials of being a black medical doctor in supposedly a liberal Bay Area.
He would literally have his surgeries bumped in favor of a white doctor.
They say their father performed surgeries in the evening or in the middle of the night. Favored nurses were taken off his shift. He worked twice as hard to earn respect and to set a path for black doctors who followed him.
Even his white counterparts would tell him, especially in that Alta Bates Herrick network, that he was so brilliant that had he been white, he would have achieved a whole different level of recognition.
He never got upset about it. He always just knew what he enjoyed doing.
Driver didn't share those stories with his family until he neared the end of his life. He passed in 1989 from prostate cancer.
He said he never wanted us to feel like we couldn't achieve anything we wanted to. He was just so ahead of his time in his thinking because he just believed women were so capable, so intelligent, and really wanted to see them gain the opportunities that any man would have.
After his death, Harris's mother, Shamala Gopalan Harris, sent a letter to Driver's wife. Driver had also delivered Shamala's second daughter, Maya, and Shamala had remained a regular patient.
Not only what a great doctor he was, but a great person, and just the support that he had given her over the years.
The family says it's a testament to their parents who always valued giving back to the community, and why watching Harris make history resonates so much with them.
To see this happen in the highest level of public service, really, I think Wendy and I and my parents' grandkids, take enormous pride in that legacy.
What do you think your dad would say if he could see this moment?
He would give a standing ovation.
From one person breaking barriers to another.
And that's what Kamala represents. And that's where I think he would be so proud, so proud if he were sitting there on Inauguration Day watching this on TV.
Christina Rendon, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
All right, everybody, most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. When you return, we will continue to listen in and get details about Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's life and her past political experience prior to getting one of the nation's highest offices, actually the highest offices in the land, in the world, right? Again, more news now from Fox. Inauguration Day special coverage is just moments away. Again, everybody, welcome back to News Now from Fox, our special Inauguration Day coverage. We've got 2 different vantage points of Capitol Hill right now. On the left-hand side, that's what we call a wide shot. You can see a lot of the building, the flags and the stage sets and the video monitors as well. On the right-hand side of your screen, that's a more zoomed-in close-up picture where you can see the celebration. The stage is set. There are chairs there. Not nearly as many people in attendance as usual due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but members of Congress will still be there, celebrity appearances and performances and the like. And the celebration is going to continue well into the evening. Guess what? You can watch it all right here on News Now from Fox. Again, my name is Pilar Arias, everybody. I'm coming at you live from the East Coast Hub in Orlando, Florida. We are staying on top of everything inauguration that you want and need to know today. If you happen to miss any of these historic events, like President Trump leaving the White House for his final time, his final public remarks before boarding Air Force One, the last time you will hear from President Trump as a president, he's coming right here to Florida to live with First Lady Melania Trump as well. You can watch it by heading on over to our YouTube page. But next, I want to take a look at the professional rise of Kamala Harris and how it led to her becoming the first female vice president. So let's take a look right here on News Now from Fox.
It was here at San Francisco's Hall of Justice, where 17 years ago, Kamala Harris began her career as an elected official. At just 39 years old, she unseated an incumbent district attorney to become the first woman and the first person of color to head the office. I spoke to several people who were in Harris's inner circle at that time to learn how her leadership skills would one day propel her all the way to the vice presidency.
I think what she leaves in her wake is a series of groundbreaking decisions.
In 2003, the district attorney's race was just another San Francisco election.
Good morning, I'm Kamala Harris. I'm running for district attorney.
But an unlikely win to unseat incumbent Terrence Hallinan would set Kamala Harris on a path to become a national political star.
I think when she walks into a room, when she's laying out her vision, when she's talking to an audience, that's going to stand out wherever she is. And so we saw that here while she was a prosecutor.
Paul Henderson heads the city's Department of Police Accountability. He was Harris's chief of administration at the DA's office. He's known her since law school.
I think we can rely on the core values that she's cultivated as a prosecutor, the core values that she has cultivated as an elected leader to carry her through.
The nation has only recently been seeing the no-nonsense attorney her colleagues have known for years.
I'm speaking.
In San Francisco, Harris pledged to abolish the death penalty and began reimagining drug cases, focusing on rehabilitation over punishment. At the same time, she vowed to be smart on crime and targeted gun crimes ravaging the city's poorest neighborhoods.
And if you carry an assault weapon, plan to spend a lot of time in state prison.
Just 4 months into her first term, Harris's campaign promises would be put to the test.
You know, we're all praying and hoping that this never happens again.
Officer Isaac Espinoza was gunned down by a gang member. Police and California's 2 Democratic senators urged Harris to seek the death penalty against defendant David Hill. Despite the overwhelming pressure, she declined to pursue capital punishment. Hill was later convicted of second-degree murder and not eligible for the death penalty.
It was a really challenging period of time to make a decision like that and to stick to your guns.
She added tremendous energy to the vice president, his ticket, and I think that she's going to bring that to being the highest elected woman in the history of this country.
Susie Loftus also worked in the district attorney's office with Harris and later became part of her team at the state attorney general's office. Loftus has watched reform-minded policies, like those Harris enacted here, spread to DA's offices around the nation.
It takes politicians willing to be courageous enough to do things differently, and I think we've started to see the results, but we've got a long way to go.
As the tie-breaking vote in the Senate, Harris will have power that few vice presidents have ever seen.
She will cast the deciding vote each time that there is a tie, and believe me, that's an awesome amount of power.
Former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown is confident in Harris's abilities to take on the mountain of work going forward.
She is going to be relied upon by the president more than any previous vice president, and she's going to be respected by her fellow senators.
The nation will be watching how Harris handles the job of vice president, and so will her former colleagues, knowing there's work to be done and someone ready to do it. In San Francisco, Evan Cernovsky, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
All right, again, big thanks to all of our sister stations across the country that have been providing all of this coverage for us that we can bring you on Inauguration Day right here on News Now from Fox. Again, everyone, I keep repeating this. The stage is set, but it is. You see everybody there preparing for the historic moment that's going to take place in less than 3 hours, and you'll be able to watch it live, raw, unfiltered right here on News Now from Fox. This has actually been one of my favorite days hosting the show, and that's because we've had live guests after live guest. Joining us now is author Dan Morain, who wrote Kamala Harris's biography called Kamala's Life, An American Way. Good morning, Ms. Morain. How are you doing?
Great. Everything's great. Thank you for having me.
Your original sentiments, your original thoughts, feelings about today? Where are you standing? Where are you at?
Well, you know, Kamala Harris is a transitional figure. She was a transitional figure in California. She will be now a transitional figure for the nation. This is a momentous time, a momentous day. She has always been an impressive politician, certainly not perfect. but impressive nonetheless. And I think the nation's going to start to see that.
In a nutshell, what is Kamala's way?
Kamala's way is that she's a very tough, very smart, charismatic person. She's a person with empathy. She's also a person who can be cautious. She's a deliberate thinker. She's a strategic thinker. It's also the book Kamala's Way in American Life is really does bring her from where she was born in Oakland and grew up in Berkeley and Montreal, brings her up to where she is today. So the idea of the book is to be a primer to tell people how she got to where she is today.
What would you say is or isn't groundbreaking about Kamala Harris's path to the White House?
Well, you know, the surface is important. The symbolism is important to have a woman vice president, to have a person of color, a person whose father came from Jamaica, whose mother came from India, is symbolically important. Tells every little girl, every person of color that they too can be there where she is today. But then it's also, you know, this is a person who is a serious policy person, and she's going to bring that to the White House. She's going to be I believe, an integral part of the Biden White House. You don't pick Kamala Harris to be some potted plant you shove over in a corner. This is a person who's got thoughts and opinions, and you know, she's science based. She's going to be a force.
You are not the first person that I asked this today, but what do you think about the president-elect choosing somebody that just months ago he was running against to be the president of the United States?
Well, you know, there's a long history and tradition of presidential candidates picking some of their chief rivals. I mean, President Reagan picked George H.W. Bush, and they went at one another during the campaign. So it shows that Joe Biden is not a thin-skinned person, and he understood that Kamala Harris, when she was running for president, was running to win. She wasn't running to be runner-up. In this case, being runner-up is not a bad place to be.
What do you think is a common misconception that the public has about her?
Oh, I think that people on the right view her as a radical. She's not. This is a woman who spent a lot of time being a line prosecutor in Alameda County, Oakland, and then was a prosecutor in San Francisco. She put people in. She handled cases that resulted in people serving very long sentences in prison. Some of them are still there. So she's not she's not some radical leftist, and then people on the left view her as not progressive enough. You know, she is a thoughtful policy person.
Sorry about that. One final question I have for you, Mr. Morain. What will the media political world take away from all this, you think?
Well, I think everybody assumes that she's going to be running for president in 4 years if President Biden serves only one term. I'm not sure that Biden's going to serve one term. I mean, not that I know Joe Biden. I think he's wanted to be president for a long time, and if his health permits, he would run again. She's going to be a front runner, whether it's 4 years or 8 years or 12 years, whenever it is she decides to run for president when the timing is right for her. She'll be the front runner. Her success also truly depends on Joe Biden's success. So her ability to be the best vice president she can be will really determine her fate. So I would guess that should be the takeaway.
So you're essentially saying this will not be the last, these next 4 years. If anything, it's just going to ramp up. It will not be the last times that we see Kamala Harris.
You know, I wrote the first biography. It's not going to be the last biography of Kamala Harris. She's now beginning to be the stuff of history, and you know, biographers much better than me are going to be looking at her in the decades ahead.
All right, author Dan Morain, thank you so much for joining us this morning here on News Now from Fox, and maybe we will be speaking again in the future.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, we are now taking a live look at Capitol Hill. Look at those red drapes. You've got security in place. You've got members of the military. You've got media as well. You see people with the credentials there dangling from their necks. It looks pretty cold. There's plenty of masks there as well. I'm going to head on over to our sister station, Fox 5 DC, to see exactly what the temperature is like out there right now. It is currently 39 degrees, so it's going to be a chilly inauguration day, but definitely history in the making. Right now, I actually want to play for you. Regina Gonzalez got to speak with TMZ about exactly the celebrity appearances and performances that we can expect to see today. And guess what? You'll get to watch it all right here on News Now from Fox.
Hello, everyone. You're watching News Now from Fox. I'm Regina Gonzalez. Thank you so much for tuning in to our special Inauguration Day coverage. And I wanted to take this segment to break down the fun stuff, celebrity guests, celebrations. And to do that, I am joined by TMZ's very own Michael Babcock to kind of break it down for us. Michael, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Regina, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Awesome. Well, so we've heard of, you know, my girl J-Lo performing, Lady Gaga singing the national anthem, John Legend, Demi Lovato. Can you kind of break down who we will see and when on Inauguration Day?
Yeah, the one thing that this inauguration today isn't going to lack, Regina, is celebrity power, A-list power. So, you know, during the inauguration, you know, what we'll see this afternoon is performances by Jennifer Lopez and Lady Gaga. I mean, it doesn't really get much bigger than those two, and they are set to perform today. They are expected as well to be at the inauguration when, you know, soon to be President Joe Biden takes his oath of office. And, you know, it's not going to be like a normal inauguration here. There's going to be around 1,000 people. Most of those will be, you know, members of Congress as well as guests of theirs. But, you know, with the performances, J-Lo and Lady Gaga are expected to be there when Joe Biden becomes president of the United States. Now, that's not all when it comes to the celebrities. There is a big time show, and I know you are going to be airing it later on tonight. It has been dubbed Celebrating America, and this thing is huge. Not only is Tom Hanks acting as the host of this program, you have Justin Timberlake, you have John Legend, Demi Lovato, John Bon Jovi, and the list just goes on and on. There's going to be a bunch of special performances. There could be surprise guests. And it's sort of in lieu of being able to have the normal big balls, you know, that you normally had with a lot of people and a lot of guests. Obviously, with COVID-19, that is just not able to happen this year. And I think, you know, Joe Biden and his team still wanted to make today special, and they are using these big time celebrities to do that.
And I also saw that today's celebration will also be honoring healthcare workers and frontline workers. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, those are the people that have, you know, been the heroes, you know, over the last year, particularly since March, and how they have been on the front lines, you know, consistently saving lives, keeping people safe and healthy. And, you know, Joe Biden has made it clear that those are the people that he wants to reward. And what better way to do that than to honor those men and women at the presidential inauguration.
Now, I also saw that there is going to be a virtual Inauguration Day parade, and there will also be internet celebrities, specifically one of my favorite videos I saw in 2020. His name's Dogface. He was drinking ocean spray, cranberry juice while skateboarding to Dreams. So how will he be factored into today's parade?
You know, if you would have asked me to name a million people who would have been part of the inauguration, I never would have said Nathan, Dogface, the viral dream skateboarder. We don't know exactly how he's going to be part of this virtual parade, but he definitely is going to be part of it. His segment has already been filmed. He did it a little while back, sometime over the last few weeks, near his home in Idaho Falls. Look, I'm sure everybody remembers this guy. It was a TikTok video. He was listening to Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. He was drinking the Ocean Spray Cranberry, of course, right from the bottle, and it changed his whole life. Ocean Spray gave him a new car, and he bought a house. He has a merch shop now, which is just blown up online. He's making a lot of money for himself. He was engaged, and probably, I would venture to say, the coolest thing that has happened to him is now, a little bit later on today, in a few hours, he is going to be part of this virtual inauguration celebration, the parade. And I'm very excited to see what they have in store. I'm sure it's going to have something to do with Fleetwood Mac and a skateboard. I wouldn't be surprised if they recreated that very famous moment. But I think it's cool. I think it shows that Joe Biden is in touch with what's going on. And I think more than anything, in a year, again, 2020, that was bad for so many people. I think that was a moment of levity and fun and positiveness for people. And I think they want to try and bring that feeling that Nathan gave everybody to the inauguration day. And hopefully that happens.
And I saw that Nathan was shocked. Is it true? I saw you guys reported that Biden's inauguration planning team actually reached out to him personally.
You're right. And can you imagine him getting that phone call? And they probably thought somebody was prank calling him. But me in the inauguration, he was totally shocked, floored, and obviously, despite politics here, I think that he was honored to be part of an event like this.
Absolutely. Well, so now you mentioned the ceremony. I know that you guys were reporting that there is not going to be too much seating. A lot of it is going to be virtual. So can you kind of break down what we will see during the ceremony?
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of spread out congressmen and women. It's, normally there are so many people at the Capitol and, it's in ways a raucous crowd. Not going to be the case here. We have seen rehearsal photos and video, and there was a lot of social distancing going on here. The rules that have kind of been set forth, the ground rules here are, Congress can attend, Congress people can bring a guest, but outside of that, and of course, President Joe Biden, Vice President Harris's guests, there's not going to be many other people. And, like I said, J-Lo, Lady Gaga are expected to be in attendance, but otherwise it's going to be a very spread out, very socially distanced crowd, unlike anything that we have seen in the recent past.
Awesome. Well, Michael Babcock, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, it should be fun. Lots of celebrities. They have brought out the A-list talent for that. And, politics aside, again, I think the Hollywood heavy hitters will be out today. And that's one of the parts that I'm really looking forward to watching.
And like Michael said, we will be streaming the Celebrating America event here on NewsNOW from Fox. So be sure to tune in at 8:30 Eastern time to see all of these celebrity performances. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. You have a great rest of your day.
Anytime. Thanks, Regina.
Yes, big thanks to our very own Regina Gonzalez for that interview. You know what, everybody? I was just saying, we are in such inauguration mode today that I completely forgot that it's like a regular business day. Stocks are still trading. Here's a live look at the Dow Jones Industrial Big Board. Currently nothing but green, but just barely started trading literally minutes ago, like 3 minutes ago. Currently up about 100 points. We have a transition of power, oaths of office that are going to be given today. It's a historic day for a lot of people, millions of Americans, those who voted for President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. They've been waiting for this day. So it is here, January 20th, 2021. I do want to show you a live picture now because it's actually moving. It's flying around there. Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., of course, under full lockdown. They do not want anything to happen like what happened 2 weeks ago with the Capitol chaos there, the deadly Capitol chaos, and they are just making sure that everything goes off as planned, as expected, and everyone stays safe, not just from any sort of potential harm, but COVID-19. You just heard there the socially distanced event, mostly virtual event, but still something that millions are going to be watching today, and we've got your full coverage right here on News Now from Fox. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. When you return, we will continue to look back at what got Vice President-elect Kamala Harris to this point. Welcome back to News Now from Fox, everybody. Regina Gonzalez actually just provided me this update of events that are coming up, and you're going to get to watch it all right here on News Now from Fox. As you can see there, expected at 9:46 Eastern this morning, the Marine Band is going to begin playing. It is the opener for the inauguration celebration. 11:30, President Trump on Air Force One is supposed to be arriving here in Florida. 11:35, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is going to be taking her oath of office, and 11:43, President-elect Joe Biden is going to be taking his oath of office. Be sure to stay here. You'll be able to watch it all unfold live on News Now from Fox. We are a 24/7 operation. If you'd like to get more details about who we are, what we do, how we do it, or all the different ways that you can watch us, all you have to do is go to newsnowfox.com. Again, that's newsnowfox.com. You're not going to miss a single moment of this historic day right here on News Now from Fox. But coming up next here, before we pass things on to the News Now from Fox headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona, we're going to continue to take a look at the professional rise of Kamala Harris and how it led her to becoming the first female vice president. Greg Lee walks us through her resume.
I do want to thank you for the honor of representing the place of my birth, as a proud daughter of California.
As she officially resigned from her role as U.S. Senator, Kamala Harris promised Californians this wasn't goodbye, rather a hello to the nation.
A person who's going to be in the lives of America for, well, really now history as the 49th vice president. There haven't been many before her and none like her.
Born in Oakland, raised in Berkeley, Harris will make history. The first female, first black, and first South Asian American vice president. In the video message, Harris said one of her first glimpses at politics came her sophomore year at Howard University in 1984. She applied to intern in the office of then Senator from California, Alan Cranston.
This kid from Oakland, I got chosen to be one of the interns. And who would have known? So many years later, I would actually run the office where I was once a student.
Harris has had a long career in California politics, and she's no stranger to breaking barriers, starting with winning the San Francisco district attorney's race in 2003, the first woman and person of color to lead the office.
You know, her way is to say, you know, I'm the first, we need to be excellent. You know, we absolutely need to be excellent as we pave this way.
Debbie Meslow is a longtime friend and senior advisor to Harris. For more than 20 years, she says she's watched the VP-elect outwork everyone. After a second term in the DA's office, Harris was elected to serve as California's Attorney General, once again shattering the glass ceiling.
Certainly her election in San Francisco was a transition. When she became California Attorney General, it also was a transition. Never before had a woman been elected, never before had a black woman been elected, or a person of South Asian descent.
Longtime California political journalist Dan Morain is the author of Kamala's Way, a new biography based on public record, interviews, and his own reporting about Harris's career. She faced criticism about her time as top cop, in part for not intervening in cases of police killings and shootings.
You know, the rap on her as Attorney General was that she was overly cautious, that she didn't take stands, and certainly that is the case, that she did not take stands on issues that were directly related to the criminal justice system.
It was during her time as AG that she became close to her future running mate's son, Beau Biden. The then AG of Delaware passed in 2015 from brain cancer.
Beau was the kind of guy who inspired people to be a better version of themselves.
On November 8th, 2016, Kamala Harris won her Senate seat. The same night, Donald Trump was elected president.
We know that we have a task in front of us. We know the stakes are high. We know that we are making a commitment tonight with this celebration of this Senate race to do everything that we know needs to happen in our country to heal, to bring our country together.
Morain and Meslow said this is one of her most memorable speeches and one that changed at the last minute.
Greg, she had a speech, she ripped it up. First, she gathered the staff together. A lot of people were really upset.
Declaring that she would fight on behalf of Californians, on behalf of immigrants, on behalf of Black Lives Matter, on behalf of people who didn't have a seat, don't have a seat at the table. She was going to fight on their behalf. She was going to be a leader in the resistance to Donald Trump.
Morain, the biographer, said Harris did just that. She sponsored bills to address police reform, racial inequities, and received national attention for her questioning of Trump nominees and officials.
Did you ask that it would be shown to you?
The policy is based on the principle that the president...
Sir, I'm not asking about the principle. I'm asking when you would be asked these questions and you would rely on that policy. Will you commit to recusing in any case involving the civil or criminal liability of the president who appointed you?
On January 27th, 2019, Harris kicked off her campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination in front of a big hometown crowd in Oakland. Her slogan, Kamala Harris for the people.
I'm running to fight for an America where our democracy and its institutions are protected against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
11 months later, she dropped out, struggling to secure the fundraising needed to continue. Then in August, after months of speculation, Joe Biden made his VP pick official.
My fellow Americans, now let me introduce to you, for the first time, your next Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
The daughter of Jamaican and Indian immigrants will ascend to the second highest office in the country. Also on the list of firsts, she's the first VP to graduate from a historically black college and university. A thrill for her Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority sisters.
Representation matters. And for her to be able to ascend from the city of Oakland, the Bay Area, through the White House to the White House is amazing. We're all very excited and cheering her on from the sidelines.
Those who know Harris best say she'll bring the totality of her many experiences to the White House.
So I want people to have faith that what they're about to see, in Kamala Harris is a seriousness, a judgment, someone who has a sense of humor, someone who understands what a lot of people are going through in this country, being raised by a single mom. And she's going to bring all that to leadership. And
as for just how far she might ascend in the future, her senior advisor said Harris is only focused on the job at hand right now, but offers this. I just would never underestimate her. And so, we'll see what happens. I think that so many of us will be rooting for her every step of the way. Greg Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
All right, everybody, we are less than 2 hours away from the inauguration of Joe Biden as the 46th president of the United States. Before he left office, President Trump reflected on his tenure and issued a slew of pardons and commutations. As usual, we have Fox News' Lauren Blanchard here to provide us with the latest updates on News Now from Fox. I want to make sure the story is ready to go for you. And let's take a live look in full of D.C. here really quickly, because I did download the video, everybody, but it's giving me a little bit of technical difficulties right now, and I want to make sure that it is ready to go for you right here on News Now from Fox, and it appears that it is. So Lauren Blanchard is up next.
There will be a transfer of power by noon here in Washington, and what authorities are hoping for and have planned for is that it will be a peaceful one. The scene is set for Joe Biden's historic inauguration. It starts with the traditional morning mass. President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will take their oath of office on the west front of the Capitol. The soon-to-be 46th president is expected to deliver a message of unity to a country battling a pandemic, racial divisions, and economic uncertainty, a point he made on Tuesday night.
To heal, we must remember. It's hard sometimes to remember, but that's how we heal.
There will still be A-list stars to perform, but a small live audience. Pandemic restrictions and fears over a repeat of the January 6th attack on the Capitol have left a normally packed National Mall and Capitol City nearly empty. And hours before his term ends, President Trump issued more than 100 pardons and commutations, including to his former advisor Steve Bannon and rapper Lil Wayne. The first family moving down to his resort in Florida, first holding an event at Joint Base Andrews.
A goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form.
On his first day in office, President-elect Biden is expected to sign at least 15 executive orders. And in the coming days, he's expected to reverse a ban on transgender Americans serving in the U.S. military, also reverse a ban on federal funding for foreign groups that provide abortion assistance. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
All right, Lauren, thank you so much for that update. Here's a live look, everybody, at those who are in attendance for the inauguration. Are those snow flurries I'm starting to see? It appears so. Again, I'm going to head on over to our sister station, Fox 5 DC's website. It's 40 degrees, so maybe a little bit of light rain there. Not quite sure what was falling from the sky, but actually I'm zooming into the radar on their website, and it does appear there's a few light showers in the area, so hopefully not going to be impacting the situation there in our nation's capital. But again, everyone, if you're wondering about the lineup for this morning, that's expected to have already gotten underway, because at 9:46 the Marine Band was supposed to kick off the ceremony. At 11:30 President Donald Trump is going to be arriving here in Florida, And at 11:35, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris is going to be taking her oath of office. And at 11:43, President-elect Joe Biden is going to be taking his oath of office. I am on standby for the moment that Marine Band begins playing. But coming up next here on News Now from Fox, it makes you wonder, President Trump spent a lot of his free time right here in the state of Florida during his presidency. But what is President-elect Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to return to Delaware to hit up some of his favorite spots? Let's hear this report from our sister station, Fox 29 in Philadelphia.
Well, having the leader of the free world hail from your own hometown is pretty cool, no matter your political party. Joe Biden may have Secret Service detail, but he also might show up at your local grocery store. Around Greenville, Delaware, the president-elect is treated more like the guy next door.
When living in Delaware, you always have a Joe story. He's everyone's Uncle Joe. He's a wonderful person.
Cassidy Greer's grandmother is actually friends with the Bidens. They come here to brouhaha coffee all the time for their morning cup of Joe.
And here, when he comes in, of course, everybody knows who he is, but he still just treats you like you're a normal human, as so do we to him.
The Bidens who live in the Wilmington suburb have become fixtures here, whether it's at the post office, Sunday Mass at St. Joseph on the Brandywine, or a family dinner at the charcoal pit, where Biden once took President Obama.
He's sort of just not trying to be presumptuous or important or anything. He's just wants to run into the restaurant and sit down and eat like all the rest of us.
Over at Jansen's supermarket, pictures of Biden dating back to his early political days hang above the customer service counter.
He was just about to go out the door, and I yelled, "Hey, Joe!" He turned around, and I put my hand out and walked back to me, shook his hand and said, "Give him hell, Joe." And he said, "I will."
John Geis moved here last year. Within a month, he met Biden at Wagner's hardware store. Oh, the owner here, he's known Biden since they were kids. Chuck Wagner says he doesn't expect President Biden to be shopping here too much, but says he never forgets his friends.
He's asked me a number of times, how you doing? How you making out? Everything all right? He really cares about people.
And another place where Delawareans run into Biden is the Amtrak train station. Known for his morning trips to D.C. for his Senate duties, he will ride that same train from Wilmington to the Capitol on the morning of his inauguration. In Greenville, Delaware, Chris O'Connell, Fox 29 News.
Chris, thank you so much for that. Actually, some new information about that, everybody. That Amtrak ride that was planned is actually not taking place. But I do want to show you here, this is continuing coverage of Inauguration Day, showing you the guests that are arriving. The ceremony already a few minutes behind schedule. We do have a live picture as well of the church that President-elect Joe Biden actually was at for Mass this morning, and it appears those church doors are now opening, and the President-elect is going to be leaving there. So I do have a news alert that I want to bring you right here on News Now from Fox. We have learned that President Trump did leave a letter for President-elect Joe Biden before departing the White House. This tradition was not expected to happen. So again, this is breaking news. President Trump left a note for incoming President Joe Biden before departing the White House. That's according to Fox News. A source told Fox News the contents of the note are just between Trump and Biden. It is traditional for outgoing presidents to leave a note for their successor. While Trump is breaking a century-and-a-half tradition of every outgoing president attending the inauguration of their successor, he is keeping with the now 32-year tradition of the departing commander-in-chief writing a note to the incoming president. As he left the White House in January 1989 after 2 terms in office. Oh, they just changed that live picture for us there, everybody. And unfortunately, it appeared that we just witnessed somebody fall over there. So I'm going to be changing the vantage point. Looks like it was a slip and fall there, but certainly don't want to show somebody's injury here on News Now from Fox. I'm going to continue on with this breaking news story here for you, though. As he left the White House in January 1989 after 2 terms in office, President Ronald Reagan started the tradition, leaving a note for his successor, George H.W. Bush, who also happened to be his vice president. 4 years later, despite losing to then Governor Bill Clinton of Arkansas in a bitterly contested election, outgoing President Bush left Clinton a note in the Oval Office. The tradition has carried on to this day. So again, this is breaking news. We talked about here earlier on News Now from Fox about all the stuff that wasn't happening today. We have now since learned that this tradition, though, has carried on more than 3 decades in the making. President Trump did leave a note for Joe Biden. Again, the contents of the note are just between President Donald Trump and Vice President-elect Joe Biden. We are a few moments behind when all of this pomp and circumstance was supposed to kick off this morning. I did just get confirmation, though, that this live picture that we were looking at, this is President-elect Joe Biden departing the church after morning service. Only the second Catholic president in the history of the United States to serve in the role of the highest chief in the land there. I had heard reports earlier that Senator Mitch McConnell was also going to be in attendance of this mass, but so far I have not seen Mitch McConnell actually in any of these live pictures until this ceremony fully gets underway. Everybody, I'm going to take you back out to our sister stations, Fox 5 DC's coverage here in just a few moments. They're actually in a, nowadays with everything changing, there's many different ways to bring everybody commercial breaks and the like. So they are in a break right now. I'm going to bring it to you here in just a few moments on News Now from Fox. Lauren Blanchard, she has been in our nation's capital covering politics extensively. She's been bringing us all these updates about what we can expect to see today. And I do have one more story from her that I'm going to play for you right here on News Now from Fox. We're keeping a very, very close eye on all these different live pictures. Don't worry, you will not miss a thing. We've got your full coverage here on News Now from Fox.
For inauguration security, the FBI and defense officials say they are leaving no stone unturned. A day before the country witnesses a historic transfer of power, thousands of National Guard troops are stationed inside and outside the nation's capital, all in an effort to provide security for Inauguration Day. Following the violent attack on January 6th, authorities want to make sure something like that never happens again.
You have to plan for emergencies, plan for contingencies, plan for the worst that can happen. They didn't do that on the 6th, but they're doing that now around the nation's capital and then also state capitals as well.
The security measures coupled with the coronavirus pandemic has forced the presidential inaugural committee to make drastic changes. This year, it will largely be a virtual event.
I think more Americans than ever before are going to be tuning into this because people are looking for a fresh start.
There is already discussion about what President-elect Joe Biden will do on his first day in office. Executive orders on immigration, climate change, and the economy will play a huge part.
Joe has outlined our plan for vaccinations, our plan for recovery, and in particular relief for working people, for families. And there is a lot to do.
Today, 5 of Biden's cabinet nominees, including his pick for Secretary of State and Treasury, will appear on Capitol Hill for the start of their confirmation hearings. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.